everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. Happy kickoff of the weekend, everybody. Hope you're doing well. We're going to be doing live readings here this evening. We're going to be doing astrology readings, and we're on the precipice of having a new moon. So you guys probably saw this was advertised as new moon readings. We've just kind of gotten into that sync. But welcome back if you guys are subscribers and if you're members. And if you're not, make sure you hit the button below and you're subscribed so you are alerted as to when we have new content coming out on the channel. I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes just to kind of get into the queue, see that we're going live. And I have been pulling all of your guys' charts. So we've got a whole list of people, got some level 3 people. So let me get some of your guys' stuff up and going and we'll get started in just a second. I noticed in terms of the level 3 subscribers, we've got Coco, Emma, and Sarah. All of you guys wanted to jump in and get your reading. Coco, can you confirm your birthday is the December 1st, 1989? I just want to make sure that's you. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. Usually on the weekends, we alternate between tarot and astrology. So this week's going to be astrology. If you would like to get a reading, if you'd like to get in the queue, I recommend doing it sooner rather than later because the longer you wait, the longer the wait will be. So there's a QR code right here. You can scan that. It'll take you to my PayPal where you can make a donation. You can ask a question about a transit or a natal aspect in your chart for $40. If you want to ask a question about synastry, it's $65. I need to have very specific information. So far, everybody has done awesome. But please, if you can, when you make your donation for your reading, I need some info from you to be able to cast your chart. So I need to know your time, date, location of birth. So I need the city, the AM, the PM, as well as the exact location and the date and the year. I'm here in America, so if you can spell out the month for me, that'd be really helpful just so I don't mess up your chart. We'll be able to cast your chart live. It'll be coming up on the screen. I'll talk to you a little bit about what's going on. In that memo, you can also put what your question is. Please be specific. I know sometimes they're like, just tell me what you see, but I could go on and on. So please be specific with your question. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of kick this off. As always, big thank you to my subscribers and my members, to all of you guys who support the channel. Those of you guys who don't know, if you like my content, I have memberships available. So for just a couple of dollars a month, you can actually become a member and you can support my channel and make it possible for me to keep bringing content for you guys. I try to put as much free stuff out there with high quality as possible, from the production to also all the research, the time, and just what I'm giving you. So I'm doing every month, you guys get 3 months of horoscopes. I'm doing new moon reports, full moon reports, weekly astrology weather, and I've been doing some free webinars here and there. So if you guys are enjoying that and you want to support me, you can always donate to my QR code through my PayPal, or you can become a member. Level 1 is just going to be the lowest level you can donate. Level 2, you get a shout out. And level 3, you're going to get a reading once a month from me on my lives, which is pretty cool because we take level 3 people first. So you don't have to wait. And at any point throughout the month, if you have questions, you can check in and you can cash in on that. So it's a pretty good deal. Other ways you can support me also is, if you aren't getting your reading, totally fine. You want to hang out in the chat, giving me a thumbs up, sharing this stream, or subscribing is really helpful. It helps with the algorithm. And if you like the way that I read astrology, well, you're in luck because tomorrow is the very last day that I'm taking signups for my Astrology 201 courses. We're going to teach 8 weeks of learning all about transits, return charts, and predictive techniques with astrology. So we'll plug that link in there if any of you guys want to jump in there, and if you want to be a part of my class. There's going to be like 40 students or so far, and we're going to be learning all about how to predict with astrology transits. So I will be teaching a lot of the techniques that you see throughout this, and more: progress charts, return charts, solar return, all the planetary return charts, you name it. We're going to start talking about that stuff. So if you were a part of my level 1, this is going to be the new level up. All right, thank you for letting me do all of my shameless plugs. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and do a roll call. So I've got Coco, Emma, and Sarah. I have all of you guys. Thank you very much. And then in terms of everybody else who has made donations for readings, this is who I've got: Rochelle, Amber, Chelsea, Kelsey, Austin, Rayna, Crystal, in that order. So we'll probably hang out. We'll leave it open for like a half an hour or so if you guys want to sign up and get into the queue. If you do get into the queue, just let me know if you've made a donation, and please let me know if your name differs on YouTube versus PayPal, because sometimes it's a different name and I'm like, I don't know who this is. And as always, thank you guys for your patience. What's going on, everybody? Hey, Sarah. Hey, Marsha. Hey, Mary Lynn. We got Nina in here. Got you, Rayna. Coco, Jamaica me crazy. You can do more than one. You can do Sinistry for 65 if you want. I think we're good. Kelsey, Adriana. Okay, good evening. How's everybody's weekend going? How's it getting started for you guys? Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. Hey, Deanna. You want to cash in, but you won't be listening live. I've got you. I've got you in here. What's up, Wendy? All right, so I'll add Deanna. So we're going to do Coco, Emma, Sarah, and then Deanna, and then we'll get into the rest of you guys. I'll leave this open probably for like another 20 minutes or so you guys can kind of shuffle in. So let's go ahead and get started with Coco. I've got you here, my dear. And yeah, like I said, we're coming into a new moon. I don't know where the transits are right now. Yeah, yes, I do. So the sun just entered into Aquarius. Tonight and into tomorrow, we're in like a dark moon phase. So the moon's about to come into conjunction with Pluto. Then we're going to have a new moon that's going to be conjunct Pluto. So there's going to be some darker things that probably come up tonight. Some heavy feelings and emotions. So we'll try to hold space for that. All right, so let's see here. I've got Emma, but where is Coco? Coco, what's your question, if you don't mind me asking? For some reason, I'm trying to scroll up, but I don't see it. And I can see Emma, Sarah, and Deanna. So Emma just wants her new moon reading. Looks like Sarah had a particular question. Okay, Deanna, got you. Thank you. Okay, so you want to know about the new moon too. Okay, cool. We can do that. All right, Coco, just send me a message and let me know what you want me to take a look at. But obviously, as always, we've got you here as a Pisces rising, sun in Sag, and your moon is in Capricorn. Interesting that you're having like your lunar return roundabout now. So whatever is happening today seems like it's going to be symbolic of what you're kind of dealing with for the next month. Coco says, I'm leading plant medicine ceremonies starting tomorrow and on new moons with a business partner. I'm curious how this plays out with my chart and how it'll go for success money-wise. Okay, so depending on when you're starting it, okay, so just a heads up, like in theory, by Placidus terms, the new moon is going to be in your 11th house. So that's planting new seeds relating to you working with groups of people. So that's good. So it's basically saying you're setting the stage for the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks to learn more about connecting with other people. New moons are about setting that intention. Capricorn, right? It's work. So it's not just, hey, I'm leading it. It's like, no, this is like, I'm trying to turn a business out of it. So it's kind of aligning with what you're intending to do. We want to start new things when there's a retrograde. Mars is direct. We've also got Mercury that has also just recently gone direct. So in terms of following the astrological rules of trying to start new things during a new moon and when planets are direct, you've done a pretty good job. What I will say though is that if we're looking at tomorrow, what's going on Pacific time, so you're saying 12 to 6, so that's going to be 3 p.m. my time. Around that time is just as the moon is coming into conjunction with Pluto. Okay, so it's like there's some stuff that's going to be setting up. So if we look at 12, there we go. So yeah, right around the time moon and Pluto are conjuncting. So technically you're doing it the day of the new moon. But you're going to be watching that with the moon Pluto coming into conjunction. It can be about literally going through a detoxification, a purge, right? That's what Pluto can be. Moon Pluto conjunctions can be very heavy, and it can be about detoxing, clearing, removing attachments or entities The late degrees of Capricorn also talk about clairvoyant visions or working with elders or connecting with elder spirits and working with the element of earth. If people are setting intentions revolving around really purging and detoxing and healing, especially from Pluto topics like, abuse, fear, negativity, regeneration, in theory, it's a good time to do this, but there's going to be some very heavy moods that are going to come up. So if you're facilitating, be mindful that there can be some people who are actually really purging in a number of different ways, if you get what I'm saying, which can be not so pleasant. And there can also be this pressure going on in terms of working with women in a business sense, and being able to kind of help support other people. In your astrology, though, the conjunction sextiles your ascendant, so it tells me that you're really leaning on that Neptune transit of like listening to your intuition and being able to be a guide and healing. And it's also trining your 7th house of other people. So it's well aspected. I just feel like you happen to pick a new moon that's very, very, very potent in terms of there being some extremely heavy moods. But setting the stage and doing this while you have a new moon in your 11th house is a good time to do it. So I do think that it's great. Realize that when you set intentions revolving around new moons, it's really going to take you 6 months to see that fully unfold. So you want to look at what's going to be coming with the full moon that's going to be in Capricorn taking place over the summer in 2023. I don't know the exact degree of that, but I will say that I have seen that those transits in July. And it's kind of colorful because we're going to have a new moon that's going to create a grand cardinal cross. We're also going to have a full moon that's going to be in Capricorn, which is also going to be aspecting the node. So it's fair to say when we start seeing that shift where the north node is in your whole sign 2nd house of resources, the south node is in your whole sign 8th house of other people, and it's squaring this degree, right, over like the June, July period, you're going to ask yourself, do I still want to keep doing this thing? Do I still want to keep working with this person? Do I still want to keep having these moon meetings? How is it changing and transforming, right? That's what you want to think about. Pluto in your chart also has connections to your natal Pluto and Mars, right? Because you've got those both conjunct in Scorpio. So that also tells me that there is this sense of like being able to assist other people through something that can be really scary or really heavy. And that can be a way that you're kind of making money. Moon's going to come into conjunction also with Venus. So that can be really nice for being like, yeah, this is what I really love doing. I love doing this type of work with other people. So yeah, I think you followed all of the astrology appropriately. But just be mindful that there can be some really, really heavy moods that you're dealing with people connected to the group. And I would say be prepared for that. Be prepared that there can be some people that can purge in some very unpleasant ways with the moon and Pluto. And there'll be like lots of moon Pluto things that'll come up. Mom stuff, ancestral stuff, root things, stuff connecting also to the root chakra, the reproductive organs as well. But I think it's a good timing. And I think that success-wise, being that, Mercury is going to start coming in further into Capricorn and it's going to start trining your North Node and your Uranus. Maybe it's a matter of seeing like, okay, right around the end of January, how is it looking? Do we feel confident that we want to do this again? Are we going to be able to get enough people into the group to, justify being able to keep doing this? So look for Mercury in a trine. And financially, you're going to see more when you've got like Jupiter going into, Jupiter in Aries is good because I think that that's incentivizing you to want to be like a self-starter and making more money. But I think that I'm really looking for when Jupiter goes into Taurus in the spring and it starts coming into a trine with your Saturn and your Moon and your Venus, because that is, Jupiter is the ruler of your 10th house. It's going to support your 11th house of groups and it's going to start bringing in physical money and resources, right? So I think that you really need to give it some time. Like I said, that 6 months might be the working time that you work with this through the summer to see if it's worth it. But you may really start seeing this paying off anytime between, I would say, like mid-April and June, consistently seeing that kind of build, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you in terms of doing that work. Good luck, Godspeed. It's not an easy thing to facilitate that stuff, but definitely it does make sense in terms of when you started it. Awesome, doing it with an astrologer. Ask her about what she thinks about the Moon-Pluto conjunction. That's kind of ballsy to do it during that time, especially if that's when you're starting this. So this is like almost the inception chart of the business. And know that Pluto is going to go through those degrees over the next several years. So it's going to hit where you had that lunar return, then it's going to hit the sun. So it means that it may change and transform over the next immediate year or two. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Coco, thanks for supporting the channel. Let me pull up Emma. All right, so let's see what Emma said here. So once we get through the level 3 people, I will take you, Rochelle, don't worry. Emma says, hey, I want to cash in for a new moon reading. Okay, cool. So you're going to be having the new moon taking place in Aquarius. Technically, this is going to be in your 2nd house. So we've got a new moon planting new seeds, focusing on anything in regards to 2nd house matters, self-esteem, money, resources, your values, right? So this is the time of the year that you do your abundance intentions. If you're wanting to bring in higher self-esteem, if you're wanting to bring in a new talent, or if you're wanting to develop something, if you're wanting to grow your resources, make more money, this is the time to do it. However, interesting aspects because it is kind of riling this chart up a little bit. We've got the moon in Aquarius that is pretty much within a degree of squaring your natal moon. So you've got moon Uranus in Scorpio in the 11th house, and then you've got a new moon that's coming into a hard angle with your moon in your natal Uranus. So moon in your chart rules your house of relationships. Uranus rules anything in regards to communication. So that located in the 11th house tells me that there's something that's being defined or something new that's emerging that is about your value system, your resources, which is challenging your old goals, right? It's challenging also your female friendships. So it's possible that there can be some tension. And I notice this is happening simultaneously as the South Node is approaching your natal Uranus, which means that you're going through a clearing of friendships anyway, or a changing of goals anyway. You've been in your reverse nodal return, so you're kind of learning that it's more about your happiness, your creativity, your joy, 5th house North Node transit. And as the South Node is approaching your natal Uranus, I would pay attention because this new moon is ushering that change in. It may feel like you have to detach from people, or that you may potentially have to detach from certain groups or older goals or things that are more fear-driven. If you have found that there are certain goals that you've had that are like, I have to do this because I'm afraid of something happening, you're like, I'm going to drop that like a hot potato. So it's ushering in that South Node coming into conjunction with Uranus at a 6. So it can mean that you're realizing there's some friendships that may not be contributing to healthy habits, especially emotionally, and it can bring up some static with some female friends. Soon also you're going to have the South Node come into conjunction with your moon. So that also seems to be symbolic of observing where we let go of relationships with people that may not be stable or consistent. And you're just like, I just can't deal with this anymore, right? And there can be financial issues too. There can be a sense of like loaning or borrowing money within friends or groups. And then there's some friction that comes from that also. And as the South Node continues to keep moving, it looks like it's going to come into conjunction with your natal Uranus right around mid-February. And then it's coming for your moon, and that's going to be down the road. But yeah, this new moon is kind of ushering that in. On the other side of this, the new moon also is squaring your natal Jupiter, but within a couple degrees. So this moon seems to be like the focal point of being like, I'm setting new goals and intentions for myself. I have to build myself up. I have to feel good, even if that doesn't resonate with the groups or the friends or, where I give to others, South Node in the 11th. And it's pushing you to really focus on your goals and your values. So you're creating more time and space for your happiness, which I feel like is true anyway. Watching the North Node come into conjunction with your natal Jupiter, you're going to have an eclipse there that's going to be happening in April. So the question is going to be, where are you having more playtime? Where are you having more fun, more romance, more excitement and like doing things on your own terms. And having to also focus on building off of these new found either goals for yourself or standards for yourself, or just putting yourself first. And that really is going to open up your 5th house for your Jupiter transit over these next couple months. And also your eclipse that you're going to be having. You're getting ready to have your Jupiter return. So think more about what's going to make you happy, even if that's kind of getting out of your comfort zone when it comes to other people. And if you're really focusing on wanting to build more wealth, I would say this is a good time to do that. I noticed also one other thing is that the new moon itself is in a pretty tight quincunx to your natal Mars. And so that makes me feel like there can be a sense of friction with others, right? Because you got Mars along your 7th house, or a needing to change your patterns or changing your habits. And because Mars rules your 5th house, there's a sense of you being like, I'm investing more time in my schedule and doing the things I want to do, making time for fun, crafting, dating, going and having like a dance class or something that's just going to be more, it's going to be more fun. And it might eat into the time that you have with other people. So you feel like you're going to be like, am I being selfish? And you have to just remind yourself, no, as you're going through your reverse nodal return and your Jupiter return, it's about creating that time for you to have fun. May materialize as you doing like crafting and other things within your home, or a creative business within your home. And just dedicating time to that, basically. But yeah, it's planting the seed for down the road as the South Node comes into conjunction with both Uranus as well as your moon. And it looks like you may get some emotional pushback from some women, friends, groups, people like that you're used to kind of spending time with. So just watch for that and set those intentions in regards to financial abundance. Good luck. And we've got Sarah and then Deanna. All right. I'm glad to hear that Moon Uranus is not easy. You're going to deal with some static with some of your female friends, but it'll be okay. It'll blow over. You're going to have an eclipse in opposition to that later this year, so it's going to keep happening. All right, so we've got Sarah. Let's see, where is she? There we go. Sarah says, I'm using my first member's reading. Well, thank you. What's a good date for cosmetic surgery? Do you want me to tell you about the surgery or real estate? One or the other, let me know so I can give you an answer either way. Hey, Sonia. Thank you for letting me know. Hopefully I get to read for you soon. Let's see. Real estate. Okay. Just a heads up, don't do anything cosmetic during the Venus retrograde over the summer. Okay, July and August, that's the time that you don't want to do those things. Okay, so you're asking about real estate. So doing work in real estate is interesting because you're a Sag rising. So you're getting ready to see Saturn, which rules money and resources for you. And Capricorn is the work that you do for money. So you've got Saturn getting ready to come into your 4th house and you're like, how can I make money doing real estate, or can I start my own business doing this? Saturn's going to be in your 4th house for a hot minute. It's not going to leave for a while. So you have some time by Placidus standards. And I'm watching Saturn come into a conjunction with Mars, which is about taking action, especially in regards to anything involving the home. Your Mars is also at a 28, which is a Cancer degree. So it's going to be about maybe starting a group or working with a group. I could see you possibly being like, do I try to do it independently? Do I try to work with a friend? Do I go and join another group and work alongside other people? There is a sense of needing to do things with others, okay? So just a heads up. The other way that I could look at this is if you have friends or even like a male friend who's in contracting type of work or development, or like they're into like flipping houses, or like they do the physical work, because Mars can be like that labor. You could find somebody who's like, hey, like I'm looking to refer to people who are selling homes, or I'm looking to work with somebody who has the money to buy homes, and like I want to do the work and flip it. And I'm saying that because Saturn's coming into conjunction with your Mars. Personally, I would say you probably want to wait until Saturn leaves the conjunction with your Mars, because I'm not a fan of two malefics conjuncting. Let's see if you can put forth the effort over these next couple of weeks to really get serious about trying to start this. From like a Sag whole sign perspective, you know, Aquarius is the third house, so it makes me feel like you'd have to get to know the area, the neighborhoods. You need to start a website, you would need promotional things, you would probably need to focus on social media because that's Aquarius, and get active in being like, I'm gonna build this out so people can see what I'm selling and what I'm doing. And equally, Mars has connections to your fifth house of self-employment whole sign. So do you need to take a licensing exam? Do you need to be studying? The third house could be studying before you go through the process of doing it, right? So Saturn slows down, Mars says, I wanna do it now. What you'll experience over the next like 2 months will be, if you really wanna do it, you need to take your time in putting things forward to be able to see this through. In theory, you know, your midheaven in this chart via Placidus is Leo, and that's ruled by the sun. And you've got the sun in the 6th house, which means being of service to other people. Taurus can be land, right? And you've got Venus in Cancer in the 8th house. So do I think it's possible that you could do this? Yes. Just you're looking at wait until the second half of February before you're either finished with studying, you take the exam, you're waiting for your, you know, your license, and then you can get the show on the road. Being that the North Node is also in the 4th house, it basically says part of your development in this lifetime is literally focusing on home, property, and roots, ruled by Neptune, and you have Neptune conjunct Saturn. So you would actually make a really great independent real estate agent. I wonder if it's a matter of like you, like I said, having to work with other people first for like the next year or so until we get Saturn far enough away from your Mars, and like you kind of get your feet wet and you get a feel for things, and then you feel like you're good enough to keep doing this. When you have a really strong transit to your natal sun, you're going to see that there's going to be a big peak in terms of what's going on with your work. You will see this happen in this next year. You're getting really close to having your Jupiter return in 2023, but 2024 seems to be the bigger year for me, because you'll have your Jupiter return in the 6th, expanding work and career. Maybe then you get your own office, and then you're going to see the Jupiter come into conjunction with your sun, and you'll have your own place. Yes, I have a business partner for the first year, and then you'll be alone. Perfect. Yeah, it's like you kind of need to get your bearings, you know, before you're really ready to do that. But if you're willing to make that commitment, the timing seems right. And I feel like it would be really good for you to learn the ins and outs of like the marketing aspect in terms of marketing yourself, especially if you want to do this by yourself. Because I feel like that Mars in the 4th house traditionally relates to your 3rd. So you need really strong media, and it's like we're coming into a period of time the next year or two where it's gonna be a buyer's market. Everybody's who has cash, who's been saving, will be buying houses. Not a lot of people are necessarily going to be trying to sell their homes because we're gonna see some economic decline, I think. So it's important for you to have those skills. You need to know the neighborhoods, you need to know the surrounding area, and I wanna make sure that you know what you're doing when it comes to marketing, because I think we're going to see a lot of people jump on the bandwagon in terms of trying to get involved in real estate because they know that there's lots of houses that are going to, you know, potentially be up for sale. So we want you to stand out with Mars in your 3rd house. We want you to have relationships with people in the area and get there quick, right? You're going to be driving around a lot. You'll notice that. And with Mars square your sun, I think it's also about time management skills. And making sure that you're staying on top of things. Eventually, you'll go from like working for other people to having other people work for you. But yeah, I think it's a good move. And you can always circle back if you want a question about stuff in regards to surgical procedures. I will say all next year, intermittently, you'll see Saturn trine your Venus in the 8th. So it does look like there are several times that are good. But if you want to come back next month, we can take a look at that. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And we've got Deanna, who wanted to cash in. Thank you guys for your patience. Once I get Deanna, then we'll work down the list of everybody else. And it looked like she was saying she just wanted to kind of suss this out. Let's see. You're welcome, Sarah. Good luck. Is there anything I should be aware of due to the new moon? You guys are good. Work is good. Great. I like it. So Deanna's a Leo rising and her sun is in Capricorn and her moon is in Libra. So she's asking about what she needs to know in regards to the new moon. Well, yeah, there are things you need to know. The new moon is going to be in Aquarius. So for you, Placidus-wise, it's sitting in your 6th house, which symbolizes health and daily routine and habits. So if you're wanting to set new intentions, especially because every new moon is the sun and the moon coming together, right? So you've got a connection between your chart ruler, the sun, and the 12th house ruler, the moon, which is the subconscious. So there is always a sense with new moons of you being like, what am I feeling? What's my intuition telling me? What's my inner guidance saying every single time? In general, because it's conjunct Pluto, it does represent the sense of needing to completely change and transform or purge bad habits. So if you have felt like you've been working a lot, if you've been traveling a lot, if you haven't had time to do your busy work, put the clothes away, do your dishes, get back to the gym, organize and clean your home, this would be the time that you want to do this, especially because Pluto rules your 4th house. So it's a good time to be like, I'm going to get back into the swing of really getting my house in order or getting my health in order. It can bring up some issues, particularly connecting to coworkers because Pluto is there. So I'm wondering, it's like, is there coworkers that are coming in saying that they're, dealing with a difficult time, having drama with family or having drama with their schedule, which impacts you in some way? It's possible. The biggest aspect to this is the fact that it's actually going to in conjunct your basically your natal Saturn, and it's creating, if you look at your Jupiter at 29 degrees and your Saturn at 0, you've natally got Saturn in a sextile with Jupiter, which is great because it's basically saying goals and friendships really support the person who you're becoming, and socializing and getting out there and meeting people. You don't feel alone because you keep good company, right? So when we put that sextile together and we look at how both Cancer, 0 degrees Cancer, and also 0 degrees of Virgo, quincunx are the in conjunct 0 degrees of Aquarius, okay? It's basically saying this is forming a yod. So the new moon is basically saying, hey, where do we need to focus on creating more time for our friends, creating more time for our goals, creating more time for groups, and also that in conjunct to Saturn on your ascendant, which is your body. So maybe you're feeling like, okay, my schedule's all over the place. I'm playing catch up. I want to see my friends, but I also want to clean my house, but I also want to work out. It's trying to incentivize you to find ways to do everything, right? So it's saying like, maybe you go and take a group fitness class. Maybe instead of making a bunch of plans with separate people, you're like, guys, I'm so busy. Can we pick one day and can we all meet together? So it's trying to relieve the pressure from your Saturn on your ascendant. It's also equally trying to create schedule changes from the in conjunct from Jupiter to the new moon. So your schedule might feel like a little like bombarded in a way. That's kind of like the feeling that I'm getting looking at that. But other than that, it's not really entirely that bad. You've got a new moon that's sextiling your south node. It's trining your north node. So it's also trying to get you to focus on clearing, decluttering, detoxing, focusing also more on stability and security with that north node in the 2nd house. And maybe you're like, I am going to be, saving money and eating healthier and eating at home rather than going out. That's another way that this can kind of work out when you look at aspects between the 6th and the 2nd. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, see whatever comes up, I would say like a day or two on each side of the new moon as an opportunity to really look at your natal sextile between Saturn and Jupiter, and like where you don't always have to be by yourself and do everything on your own and be alone. And if you've got health or schedule issues going on, this is saying there's a way to set up something new to kind of get on track with your schedule. And Aquarius in the 6th house can be new systems. It can be new ways of working out. Do you work out and do something digitally on like a stationary bike, or do you get a new application or something to manage or track your schedule so you're feeling like you're not totally wiped? And are you setting your schedule up in a way where you're honoring Saturn the 1st, your body, but also making time for your friends and your goals with the in conjunction to your Jupiter? But yeah, those are the big aspects that I see in terms of this new moon. And yes, Aquarius is still in relation to your 7th house, but it's not quite there yet. So you're going to have to wait until you're looking at getting like the new moon in Pisces. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Deanna. Thanks, Wendy. Appreciate it. I got you. All right. So now I'm going to be working my way to everybody else. I'll leave up the queue for 5 more minutes. So if you guys want to get in the queue and get a reading, I recommend that you do it now. So we've got Rochelle, Amber, and Kelsey. You guys are on deck. So let me pull that up. Let's see. I know I saw you. Where are you? There you go. All right. So Rochelle says, what's my year look like? I'm feeling stuck in general. What's up, Rachel? Thank you, guys. And if you guys want to get in, you got to get in now. You can scan the QR code. It takes you to my PayPal. $40 donation for a question. And I'll update the list in just a second. But if you guys got in, I got you. So Rochelle, looks like I've got you here February 3rd, 84, 4:23 p.m. And you're asking questions in regards to what's the year looking like. So as the Cancer rising, you've got Pluto coming into conjunction with your descendant. So there's definitely some things that are kind of heating up in the other people department. Okay, so Pluto has connections to your 5th house, which is about drama, love, creativity, children. Sometimes it can be about dating in general. And whenever an outer planet comes into conjunction with an angle, it usually turns the volume up really loud. So I know you're asking about the year ahead, but this is the precursor of Pluto getting ready to come into a square with your natal Pluto. So this will play out over the next couple of years. I'm looking at South Node eclipses and the South Node that's been moving through your 4th house. So it looks like there's been some kind of energetic or emotional cleansing, clearing when it comes to like your family, your home, your roots, things like that. That's still going to keep continuing until we see the South Node come into conjunction with Pluto. So we see moves, clearing out issues with relatives, finally kind of dealing with the past. And as Pluto starts coming into your 7th house, you may feel over these next few months, and it may be really magnified in July as like the need to totally change and transform certain relationships. Now the 7th house can be business partners, it can be who you work for, it could be boyfriends, girlfriends, marital partners, clients, right? So just be mindful that there is definitely going to be a profound focus on changing and transforming your relationships with other people this summer. On top of that, you've also got Saturn coming into conjunction with your moon at a 4, and that's really important because the moon is your chart ruler. So the moon in the 8th house is going to be dealing with issues relating to your relationship. Could be with your mother. It could be also because the 8th house talks about exchanges and other people's resources. So you start talking about wills, estates, inheritances, insurance, and it may be with family, but it also simultaneously could be with a partner. If you're going through relationship changes or major shifts in terms of people who you're partnering with, that on top of having Saturn on your Venus makes me feel like it's time to really start kind of clearing things out and not feeling like you have a bunch of strings attached either emotionally or financially to other people if the relationship is not serving you any longer, right? If that's the case. On top of that, you've also just completed a Mercury retrograde that has been just tearing through all of this Capricorn that you have in your 6th house. So there's been a lot of, how do I focus on healthier, more reliable, more stable, more consistent, more productive schedules? So in regards to career, maybe, but it can also be health. It can also be just feeling like you're clearing things out also that have not been conducive to you having like a productive schedule. I like the retrograde and the fact that it's been sextiling the 4th house, because even if there wasn't health or job issues, it's been like, do we clean things out? Do we declutter? Do we organize? And it's been like really helping you focus on getting like a fresh start. For the year ahead though, Pluto is going to sit on that descendant. So I'd really recommend learning about Pluto coming into conjunction with your descendant or getting ready to transit your 7th house. Even though you're a Cancer rising, you're going to have a very similar transit as like a Leo rising, because you're just the last few minutes of Cancer. And I would also encourage you to learn about Saturn coming in conjunction with your moon, because Saturn rules other people. It also rules joint resources. So it means that you may feel like there's more karmic, heaviness or obligation relating to paying off debts, loans, home loans, or something in regards to family resources. So that's definitely going to be something that's going to come up. Those are 2 very big transits. Thankfully, while you're going through that, you're going to see Saturn trine your Pluto and trine your Mars. So it's saying through dealing with some of those karmic issues, you release conflict, you release pain, you release drama. There is a sense of also feeling like maybe you can have more peace at home. Saturn through the 8th house can be an indication that there is some major transition that may happen with a relative. I'm not God, I always tell people that, but it is possible. And it's especially true because it's going to be on your moon at a 4 trine your Pluto. So in some other cases, maybe like getting, your first home loan or debt consolidation, or, you're looking at getting a business loan. So that way you feel like you can be more productive at work. Something like that is definitely possible. But yeah, that's really what I'm kind of seeing for the year ahead. Those are 2 really big transits. And the positive of this is, because there is a positive, you're going to see like Jupiter and Uranus hang out in your 10th house still. So once those eclipses kick in April, May, June, you've got eclipses in the 10th house expanding your career. You've got Jupiter that's going to be there for some time. And it may mean that you need to join other groups and other associations, and you're kind of networking with new people and finding ways to be able to really grow what's going to be your 10th house. And for so many Cancer risings, it's like really time to sit in the driver's seat of your own life and like move away from partnerships or relationships that are limiting, that are holding you back from feeling like you can be an authority in your own life. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. And yeah, just buckle up because I know with the South Node on your Mars and Saturn recently, there's been some emotional stuff that's come up. But when the South Node hits your Pluto right around May, and then when it trines Saturn, there's like a release point that's going on in terms of some kind of like heaviness revolving around either home or family. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. I'm sure we will connect, come back over the summer and let me know how that plays out, because there's a lot of emotional clearing that's going on in this chart for you. Good luck. What's up, Taria? Thank you. I'll grab you too. I'll add you to my list. There we go. And those of you guys who did sign up, I'll go through the roll call in just a second. We are going to close the readings now because we got a number of people that have gotten in there. Hopefully we can get to everybody tonight. All right, so let's see. Taria. She says, hey, when I cash in on my monthly reading, I can really feel really big, overwhelming shifts coming. Are these shifts going to change my personal or my spiritual life? Okay, cool. So I've got you here, Cancer rising, and your sun is in Aries, and your moon is in Virgo. I can feel really big things happening. Well, I mean, of course. So Mercury basically stationed in your 7th. So it's about having some realization about what's actually going to be happening in regards to relationships. So yes, that's part of it. The Mercury retrograde's been an interesting one for you because it's been in a square to your sun. So there's been this sense of like, is it relationships? Is it career? Is it relationships? Is it career? Like, what's going on, right? Like, what is it that I want? And I think that it's also being in a square to Mercury and Venus. With all that Aries in your chart, like you're such a go-getter and you're so focused on like being able to like be on top of things and getting everything up and running and going that I think there's been this sense of, is it relationships or is it my career? And it can be both. I mean, I think I say this for all Cancer risings, you'll see with Pluto square with the nodes this summer, you'll see with Jupiter in your 10th house that the relationships that stick are the ones that willingly transform. All the old ones kind of have to either go or they have to be like reworked in some way. And Jupiter going into your 10th house is also going to be really making you like the boss, right? Jupiter is going to enhance and magnify your sense of being like, yes, you know, this is me. It's me who's in charge now. I'm calling the shots. Because Saturn rules relationships for you, and you know you're still going to be having down the road, you're going to have a I believe either a new moon or a full moon that's going to oppose your Saturn. Let me check that really quick. Where is it? Is it the new moon or is it the full moon? So there's a new moon on May 19th that is going to be in opposition to your Saturn. And I feel like from that period on, because it's going to be in an opposition to your 7th house Lord, you're setting goals revolving around relationships. So you're going to see more growth there. When I think spiritual, I think of either Jupiter or Neptune, and I'm seeing like, you know, Jupiter coming into a conjunction with all of your planets right now. So it's really enhancing your beliefs and your philosophy, but more believing in yourself. And Neptune is still kind of doing its thing. It's still hanging out in Pisces. Over these next, I mean, like 10 years, we're going to see, you know, Neptune come into Aries and it will come into conjunction with your sun. There's still more room for lots of spiritual growth, especially in regards to like your purpose and what you're doing with your career. But right now I feel like the growth that's happening is just the enthusiasm revolving around the ability for you to kind of take control over where your life is going professionally. Those squares to your 7th house is like the people who show up and they get in line or they don't, right? Equally, I think that you're really starting to feel the effects of the nodes which have been in a square to your Jupiter. So I think that with Jupiter in Aquarius in the 8th house is like you going, anything is possible. I'm lucky. I'm open to receiving, you know, out of the blue, out of nowhere, new friends, new opportunities financially. And the nodes have been squaring that. So what's going to be cool is like when the sun comes over your natal Jupiter in the 8th house and it squares the nodes, is you being like, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen? I start over, you know, I have to end one thing and like embrace something new. Yeah, I would say just remain open and, you know, be excited about opportunities that are going to be fresh starts. That's like keywords for Aries in general, which is like, okay, fresh start, clean slate, but also when planets go through the 8th house. So as a Cancer rising, you're getting ready to see Pluto fully move into your 8th house. And maybe that's what you've been feeling, is that it's going to be coming into your 8th house and changing signs. And whenever an outer planet is within about 10 degrees, you really start to feel the effects, right? So Jupiter on your sun, you're feeling the effects. Pluto coming into within 10 or 11 degrees range of your Jupiter, you're feeling the effects. Really big transits for you. I think you're feeling the Pluto Jupiter transit, but honestly, that's going to be about bringing in more resources from others, being more creative, also feeling like you're more open to abundance and allowing other people to kind of support you. And I love that you're making comments about putting yourself out there into a position of leadership, because both between the Jupiter transit as well as the North Node transit, both of those are really going to open up for you and like kind of show you, like, if you want to start a business, if you want to put yourself out there, if you want to try to develop a name for yourself, get more exposure, all of those things are really going to start happening. So look for that to really, really start picking up April, right around the eclipses, and when you're also seeing these conjunctions. And Jupiter hitting all of these planets for a Cancer rising. Jupiter is the whole sign ruler of your 6th. So this is about health. This is about managing your schedule, but this is also about learning, traveling, like experiencing, being of service. So you're looking at like wanting to do a job that is going to be exciting, but it's also going to allow you to like possibly feel like you have control of your own schedule, or that you can kind of help other people. And just stay active and like work with elements of fire and do things that's going to kind of like keep that momentum going. And finally, Uranus is moving away from your Mars. So that's also good too. It's like now things are going to kind of stabilize a little bit in terms of what potential you have for future career endeavors. Yeah, it's gonna be really good. I wonder if you're gonna do some like coaching work or like something. Like it may be something like that you end up doing. Coaching, teaching, traveling. That would be really good throughout these transits over this next year or so. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for being a level 3 subscriber and supporting the channel. I appreciate it. I know we've got a number of people in the chat who are asking questions, so I'm going to give you guys an updated list of who I have. So if you hear your name, don't worry. You don't have to keep leaving me comments. I've got you. So I've got Amber, Chelsea, Kelsey, Austin, Rayna, Crystal, Danielle, Wendy, Amy Williams, Michael, Rachel, Estefani, Serena, and Bowen. So if you guys heard your name, I've got you. Don't worry. Okay, I will get to you. Okay, so we have got Amber. So let's pull up Amber. And she's 2/25/82, 12:50 p.m. She says, what do I need to know right now about my relationships? What do I need to do for growth? Another Cancer rising. You guys should start a club, right? You guys need jackets. Cancer rising. What do I need to know about my relationships? Well, how is that Pluto transit your Venus been going? Interesting. Pay attention to what happens the next 48 hours because something is wrapping up, right? So much about, if anybody saw I put out a new moon in Aquarius video, so much about this period, today and tomorrow, is about what we're wrapping up before we go to something new. Okay, so new moon. But as the moon comes into conjunction with Pluto, it's going to hit your natal Venus. So it's hitting South Node, then it's going to hit Pluto and Venus, and then you're going to have a new moon. So what are you wrapping up when it comes to relationships? You're asking me, what do you need to learn? The astrology is saying you're learning that you need to let go, right? Conjuncting Pluto and your natal South Node, where you have to work too hard, do too much, focus too much, where there's so much heavy lifting. The South Node is also where we're clearing karma. So I could see like as the moon hits that, we're clearing old moods and things that feel heavy or stagnant. And then in a couple days time, more than a couple, when Mercury comes into conjunction with your South Node, that can be a sense of being like, I'm releasing the emotions connected to this person in early February. And then Mercury is going to sit conjunct your Venus, and then it's going to conjunct Pluto. So there seems to be like a part 2 of what you're clearing out, or verbally kind of saying, I can't do this anymore, or this isn't working anymore. Or somebody's having that conversation with you around mid-February, like 8th, 9th, 10th on, as that conjunction happens. Now, Mercury transits happen very fast, as do lunar transits. The moon's changing signs every 2.5 days. But I'm really looking at Pluto finally moving on from that conjunction with your Venus. It looks like it's been a little painful over the last year or two in regards to relationships. And Venus in Capricorn is not an easy placement to have in general. Venus in the 8th house deals with transformation sometimes in relationships, learning how to like let people go, and also it's conjunct the South Node. So it's just, man, I think back in terms of this chart to like what's been going on since 2020. There has been a theme of learning to kind of let go of something that's heavy, and that's been very karmic. All of these transits have also been in a square to your natal Saturn and your Pluto. So if you've got Mars, Saturn, Pluto in your 4th, there's clearly been a past history either in relationships for you, or there's been some challenges within the family dynamic where you maybe saw lots of arguing or fighting in the family, and like there wasn't always like a lot of peace at home, or like there was betrayal or there was separation. And so as we're watching Pluto come into conjunction with Venus, it's still nailing your Saturn, it's still squaring your Pluto, right? So to an extent, it's like this is like the grand finale of like really clearing stuff out. If you've been in a relationship that hasn't been working, you're just going to notice that it's just still not working, and there's a need to kind of communicate and vocalize that. And because of the squares to your 4th house and the fact that also as a Cancer rising, Venus rules your whole sign 4th, it doesn't have to be just with a romantic relationship. It can be but it can be with family relationships or clients as well. I have said this to all my Cancer risings, and I will say this to you, especially because you have such strong placements in the cardinal signs. Down the road, as we're getting into the summertime, when the nodes switch signs, and then we also have eclipses in Aries, the North and the South node are going to move to square Pluto. That'll be in June. And then it's going to move to square your Venus while Pluto is still there in August. Okay. And so when I look at this, I feel inclined to tell you, if something's not working right now, you need to know. You need to talk about it. You need to get that out in the open. You need to start working through that to hopefully preemptively avoid what can be a much more challenging, messier time, August on of this year, when you see that the nodes square Pluto on your Venus. And you have Venus at a 27, which means there's issues revolving around communicating and sharing and ideas. It can also be issues involving other people. So like whether or not you're in relationships with people who want freedom, or they want an open relationship, or they don't want to commit, or they haven't kind of dealt or healed with relationships from the past, or they're not loving themselves. So they're in turn, it's creating like a issue in terms of the dynamic with your relationship as well. And that to me seems messier when that square happens. Especially because then you're coming into your transit node square the node. So it's like it can be so much more difficult to go through that process of ending if you're not hitting some issues in relationships head on right now. You had a Mercury retrograde in the 7th, so there's no way that you haven't been already kind of talking or working through some of these things. And you're also going to have an eclipse in April that's going to square Venus and Pluto, right, in your chart, your natal Venus, but Pluto on top of it. Once again, another theme revolving around where do you take responsibility for yourself? Where do you kind of allow yourself to be the person who's going to say, I need to do things for myself. I'm not going to let this relationship ruin me or dictate what I can and cannot do. And if I feel like I have control. But it's heavy, man. If you've got Saturn in the 4th and you've got all the heavy hitters, Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in your 4th house, I kind of commiserate because I have Saturn in the 4th, and I just reflect on over the last 10 plus years whenever Mars showed up. So I technically had, Pluto and Mars coming into conjunction with my Saturn. And my experience with those transits was like really heavy lessons coming up that were very similar in my home dynamic or my relationships that mirrored that of my parents. I mean, it was just like a nightmare. So as you're going through this Pluto square, know that it's wrapping up, it's finishing. So in theory, it's going to get easier in relationships. And when you start seeing a really positive Saturn transit, right now you're in Saturn, you've been in Saturn trine Saturn, you're going to have Saturn trine Pluto. Some new relationships are built off the back of relationships that end or take a break or transform from these transits. So if you're going through hell, you kind of have to keep on going, but you can't turn a blind eye to problems right now. There's a need to kind of deal with it like head on. So watch what happens the next 48 hours. Okay. Good luck. Hopefully that's helpful. Sending you good vibes through that. We have got Chelsea. Let's pull up Chelsea. Where is she? There we go. So Chelsea says, let's see, I've got you here, 7:23:93 at 1:25 a.m. Just general, what do you see coming from me? I'm going through my Saturn return and Pluto opposed my Sun brewing. Any blind spots? What do you intuit from looking at my chart? What's up, D? Hey guys, thanks for dropping in. Good question. So moving through your Saturn return, Saturn is going to only come into exact conjunction with your Saturn one time. So it's different for everybody, depending on where the degrees are in the retrograde when the Saturn return happens. It'll come within range. So when it retrogrades later this year, Saturn will retrograde back to 0 degrees. So in the fall, I think it's like October, Saturn will sit at 0 degrees and you're going to feel the effects of Saturn, and then it's going to ease up once you get into like 2024. Okay, so just a heads up. But because you're going to have one swipe, we want to get it right. Okay, so hopefully you've been studying your Saturn return and you kind of have an idea of what it means. Well, I mean, some people say it gets easier when Saturn leaves a sign. Some people say it gets easier when Saturn leaves a house. In theory, if we look at this from whole sign standards, Taurus rising, Saturn return, it belongs to your 10th house. Focusing on your career, right? Seriousness in what you believe in regards to your career, or furthering your career or your studies, or your maybe connecting with mentors, teaching, training. Technically it's in your 11th though. So I think it's more about your goals in regards to who you connect with and just doing your work that you need to do socially when it comes to, connecting to other people. So you got to try a little bit harder to get out there and socialize, right? Your Saturn's at a 28, so it's about the past and emotions and feelings. And what's really interesting to me is right around the time that you're having your Saturn return, it's going to happen right when the sun is coming into conjunction. So like February 15th through, it's usually like 2 weeks or so. Yeah. Through what appears to be the 25th. Okay. Maybe even a little bit longer. Yeah, through the 25th. But the whole second half of February, right? Let's just say the whole second half. Mercury's going to show up there too. So there seems to be a sense of like communicating what you do value and do not value within friendships, what your goals are with resources, who you want to align yourself with, all of that stuff. And Saturn in the 7th house, you just have to try harder to socialize. And it can be definitive. Saturn is boundaries, limitations, and in Aquarius with friends. So I'm wondering, is there going to be a sense of being like, I do or I do not have fun with this friend. I do or do not value this friend. I do or do not trust this friend, right? And you'll be dealing with people also maybe from the past. So there can be some sense of friends you've been with for a very long time, friends who come back and make amends, friends that you have some kind of karmic connection to, that kind of stuff. It makes it easier that Saturn is in a sign that it's connected to. So Saturn in Capricorn or Aquarius generally can be an easier transit. And you've had Saturn that's been building into a trine with your natal Venus. So it's helping you build on self-esteem and your own resources and not feeling like you need to base your value on whether or not somebody wants to be your friend, right? And you've got Mars that's coming into conjunction with your Venus too. So there's that. So that's also really great for kind of just building up this sense of focusing on yourself and like prioritizing, putting an effort into talking, Gemini, to people who you do value, or it could be your love life. Chelsea says, I cut off everyone because I don't resonate with the people I was hanging out with. I've been hoping for a new tribe with similar values. So what's nice is that the Saturn return is going to push you to look for that. It's going to push you to do that, right? On the other side of this, the Pluto opposed the Sun. Yeah, that's a difficult transit. It feels like a little bit of like a tower moment. You're going to have that transit off and on for the next year. Obviously, Pluto rules the 7th house of relationships, but it can also be open enemies or challenges. Pluto is a bit of like a heavy hitter, and the Sun rules your home and family, and Pluto rules relationships. So that tells me that in a career space, 10th house, you're going to be dealing with situations where you're having to literally confront authority figures. So if you have a boss, especially if it's a man or if it's a Leo or if it's a Scorpio, it could be a little intense. It also tells me there's going to be a sense of feeling like you want to have more authority over your own life, and you're not going to put up with men telling you what to do. So usually if you have the Sun in the 4th house, you had like a dominant male parent who kind of ran the roost and was like, this is how things are going to be. And so as Pluto comes into the 7th house, you may deal with that with a parent. You might deal with that with a boss. You may deal with that with a romantic partner. Equally, you may get into a relationship, right, Pluto, and somebody who's incentivizing you to stand up to your dad, and they may notice that there are tendencies that are going on where your dad treats you in a certain way and they don't like it, and they can be confrontational. So you need to be careful with that. 0 degrees is the purest form, okay? So I'm personally really curious to see what happens when Pluto gets into Aquarius, because a lot of people think that we have to wait until Pluto gets to the late degrees to see what it's going to do. If you guys think back to when Pluto went into Capricorn, in 2008, that's when like everything kind of went kaput with all of the housing market stuff. And we just saw like everything financially just kind of collapse there briefly. And it created a lot of issues. And we started to see that there was a need to completely restructure business and society and government and things like that. And so now we're coming to the tail end of this and we see where we've given them too much power, right? But we saw a really transformative tower moment the second that it entered into that degree. So my point is that 0 degrees of Aquarius is the most unusual, the most different, right? So you might say, I want a new job. I want to go about my relationship with my dad in a different way. I want to change my identity. I want to put myself out there publicly in a different way. And I'm choosing to make a shift in my career. That's probably how this is going to play out. I'm also curious because you're going to have this simultaneously while the nodes are moving, and then Jupiter is going to change signs. So like life is going to get really loud when Jupiter comes into a square with your sun. So that's going to start in May. And that's, I think, about you being like, old things are coming to a close. I'm feeling myself and I'm starting to believe in myself. Jupiter on the ascendant, or the 12th, connected to the ascendant, still in the 12th house. You may not feel like this new version of you fully emerges until 2024, because Jupiter will sit on your ascendant then. You're going to start coming out of Pluto in opposition to your sun in 2024. So this is the year where you're like strategizing and planning, and you start seeing where you're having some of these challenging things going on with power struggles at work or within your life. Then you're going to have something interesting where you're going to have the north and the south nodes square Pluto. And this is about changing your career anyway, because it's on the midheaven. And then you're going to have the north and the south node square your sun, right? So then it's also like asking yourself like parenting questions, you know, like, can I deal with the stuff with my dad? Can I see myself getting into a serious relationship? Do I want to be a parent? And then you're going to have the Venus retrograde in Leo, which is going to take place this summer. And that'll be July and August. And that's a real opportunity for a Taurus rising to do a lot of healing in regards to the relationship and the family karma. Changing homes, dealing with parent stuff. And then equally, you're also going to see that at the same time, you know, Pluto is going to be opposed. So this is all being handled this summer, basically. It's something that you're going to want to deal with, because it's going to help you feel like you have more control over your life. It's going to have you finally kind of deal with some of these long-standing family issues. And I am anticipating that it'll be next year when Jupiter and Uranus sit on your ascendant that you've really fully moved through this, and probably change your relationship, change your home, change your career. So change is the name of the game. And Pluto in Aquarius it's a doozy. Thankfully, it going into Aquarius is going to start sextiling your natal north node. So it's ushering in new partnerships, new relationships, you know? Yeah, I would say the time where you're going to feel the pressure is going to be during the eclipses. That'll be in April going into May, and also in August. Those are the 2 months that you're going to feel that, and really pay attention to what happens. You may want to go and look back on the most recent Venus retrograde in Leo. I can't remember when it was. I want to say it was like maybe 2017, but I don't know exactly. But if you go back and you look at the retrograde dates, reflect on what happened, because I know as a Taurus rising, you're ruled by Venus, and it's definitely a lot of family stuff. Okay? Maybe 2015, yeah, maybe. But home, family, dynamic stuff kind of changing with a parent or with your living situation. And yeah, especially with a chart like this, because it heavily aspects all of your angles. It aspects your Pluto and your Saturn. You may see something similar happening then. Okay? Good luck. Hopefully that's helpful. I've got Kelsey, Austin, and then Rayna. All right, Kelsey, make sure I have the right one. There we go, March 28th, 2000. Kelsey says, I would like a general reading. An old friend of mine who was very close to me, we've stopped being friends out of nowhere. Also a couple other people. I don't know if it's due to the retrograde, but it's been mind-boggling. Thanks for the reading. You're welcome. Virgo rising, 8 degrees, sun in Aries, and your moon is in Cappy. All right, well, happy lunar return. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. So here's the deal. The moon rules your 11th house of friendships. Okay, so you've had a Mercury retrograde. Mercury is your chart ruler. It's been going retrograde over your natal moon. So it means you, Mercury, have been rethinking like what's going on with the direction of my friendships, 11th house Lord, and how it makes you feel, right? Your moon's also at an 18, so it tells me that you may not be aware, but like they've been having either health issues, emotional health issues, working issues, relationship issues. 18 is a challenging degree, which can be the reason why there's been some disconnect, right? On top of that, you have also had Saturn in your 6th house, and Aquarius is friends, and the 6th house is the 12th to the 7th. So it's where people can sometimes disappear, and you're like, why are we not in talks anymore? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the problem? So I really think that's what's been happening. You have also got Pluto, which is approaching your South Node. Okay, so just word to the wise, because you were born with the moon in the 5th, it means that you're going to have lots of fluctuation with either friendships or romantic partners. It also means that with the South Node being there, it's kind of saying to you, over this next year or two, you're going to see lots of changes in the way that you look at what makes you happy. Okay, so Pluto rules the 3rd house of the mind. It's going to hit your South Node off and on for the next 2 years. Kind of saying like, okay, like, you know, am I having an issue connecting with people? You know, is it the way that I talk to them? Is it the things that we do together? Am I not getting the feedback that I need? Like there's going to be a sense of just really kind of working some of that stuff out. And when a planet sits on the South Node, it opposes the North Node. And in your astrology, your North Node is in the 11th house, which is about groups, communities, and other people. So it's not so much you. I think Capricorn moon, Virgo rising, I've known a number of these people. You guys are just very matter of fact. Like if somebody's screwing up, if they don't have their shit together, if they're not on top of their game, if they're not being productive, like you're going to tell them. So you will do that because that's your way of like basically showing love and appreciation, because you're like, oh, I want you to be the best, and like you're not being the best, and you'll kind of tell them what's up. It's a Virgo rising thing, but especially with the Capricorn moon. Anyway, also on top of all this, you've had Saturn that's been, you know, like going through your natal Uranus in the 6th house, and that also will clear friends out pretty quickly, and scheduling changes and things for you as well. Do I think this is going to be a long-term issue? No. I mean, Jupiter's going to go into Taurus this next year. It's going to trine your moon. You're also going to see Uranus that's going to fully go into Taurus. It's going to keep trining your moon this year and next year. Makes me feel like you're going to make friends that are going to be either through work or younger. You're going to meet people while you're traveling or while you're taking classes. And you might meet people also if you're going and doing like any job training. I don't know if that's something you've been thinking about, but as Jupiter and Uranus hang out in your 9th house, you will meet new people this way. You'll make new connections. And you got Saturn going into your 7th house this year as well, or it's going to sit on your cusp. So it also makes me feel like you're possibly going to take on a new relationship, and that person might travel a lot, or they might know people in other places, and then you'll end up kind of making new friends to some extent. So no, I don't. I think that it's just the retrograde, you know, and when Mercury comes back and it comes into conjunction with your moon, and maybe you hear from somebody that goes, hey girl, what's up? Sorry, I've been going through X, Y, Z. Really think about it before you give criticism, okay? Or before you judge them. This will be like right around the 1st of February. But equally, if somebody comes back and you're just like, I was totally fine without this person, I think I'm good, like that might be a sign somewhere around the beginning of February that you're just like, I think it's time, it's okay, I can let this person go, right? But the moon ruling the 11th house, you'll have lots of changes. And my recommendation is with Saturn trine your moon, Jupiter trine your moon, mix it up a little bit. Have some friends that are going to be in other places, so it'll incentivize you to travel, because part of the Saturn in your 6th house has had you landlocked, realizing that you need to change your schedule or your job so you can explore the world more. So I'd like you to meet people who are more 9th housey, that are culture, they live in other places, they want to go places, they want to go and take courses and classes, and you could go with them. And mix it up a little bit and have a diverse group of ages. Because the 5th house is younger and the 7th and the 9th house is older with that Saturn Jupiter. And I think that you'll find, especially right around your Saturn return, you're going to have higher quality friendships because it'll all trine your moon, and you're going to realize they travel and they're educated and they're creative and they like to have fun and they're like into like, you know, Taurus related things. So can you go and make friends with people who are cooks and jewelers and people who bake and people who are into investing and gardening? We want to find more of that Jupiter Saturn in your 9th house, right? And then that'll kind of expand. But yeah, I'm not surprised between the retrograde and also Saturn in your 6th house. Believe it or not, what you're coming into with Saturn in your 7th house over this next year is focusing more on relationships and people who are going to help you build more of your personal kind of private life. Not that you can't have friends too, but you'll see sextiles from Saturn and Pisces to your 9th house. So it's becoming more about what's going on with some of your relationships. You should feel with a chart like this that you're seeing some of your friends progressing in relationships and you're like, well, what about me? You know? And it doesn't mean that friends are leaving you behind, but it's creating that space so you can focus more on that. Go and learn about the Pluto transiting your South Node though, yeah? I think that'll be good for you. I think that you'll have lots of friends that'll start having kids. I think that you may also start seeing that you have some friends that are having lots of drama in their relationships and you're like, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with that. That'll be an interesting transit to observe because it's the South Node. So really, really interesting. Good luck. Let me know what happens. Circle back around and embrace the change. You know, you have Jupiter coming into conjunction with your Sun. It's about enjoying the time alone and what you do with that time as a reflection spiritually with yourself. Good luck. Thank you guys for your comments. I don't always respond because I'm deep in the chart, but I appreciate it. Okay, so we've got Kelsey, Austin, Rayna, Danielle, Wendy, Amy, Michael. I got you guys, don't worry. All right, so let's see, that was Kelsey. Okay, so we've got Austin, Rayna, and Crystal. Austin came back. I had to say, I was like, oh man, when I read your message, I was like, I'm not going to say I hate it when the tarot cards are correct, but this is like one of those situations that I was like, the cards were kind of correct, unfortunately. Unfortunately. You're welcome, Kelsey. Okay, so my friend Austin here was here last week. He said, hey Candace, I had your brutal tarot reading last week with 3 gnarly sword cards after rushing into a new relationship after my 4-year breakup. I believe I have broken another heart due to not taking the time to heal my own. I'm extremely sad, single, and feeling lost. Standing in my truth did bring me peace. From this point on, what does love look like for me, or should I just forget about it for now? And experience being alone for a little while. All right, so I've got you here June 6th, 94, 7:47, and that was the PM. Sending you lots of healing vibes. They hit me hard. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised because those were 3 of the hardest cards in the deck. But let's talk about what's going on, right? So in this last week, Mars stationed, and that's really significant for a Sagittarius rising because Mars stationing in the 7th house really is showing you what direction things are going to go with relationships. Mars deals with cutting, letting go, severing. It can be passion, it can be conflict. It just depends. In Gemini, it's representing, I think, your subconscious, because it rules your 12th house, kind of really coming out in your relationships and being like, okay, there's this thing I haven't dealt with and I need to just, kind of cut it off. So it makes sense that happened. I will tell you that even in spite of that transit, romance isn't really going to be a problem. On top of the Mars coming back into your 7th house, which could ramp up another relationship, especially as it's coming into conjunction with your Mars in a couple of weeks, you could, go back and say, I want to reconnect with that person. I wonder if you will do that maybe. I think it's a matter of really reflecting on what you need to let go of first. But Mars is going to come back into conjunction with your Sun at 16 degrees around February 20th. So Mars is about passion. It rules your 5th house of having fun, sex, and desire. This is my warning that you may either consider going back to that person or be like, what else can be fun and quick, right, that I can partake in? You may also meet somebody in another place, or there may be a sense of you being like, I need to get out of town to go somewhere to clear my head, and then you meet someone. right around third week of February. 2, I'm also looking at the fact that Mercury has been going retrograde in Capricorn, and it's been in conjunction to your Neptune, which is, I don't know how I feel. I don't know what I value. I don't know if I feel secure. I'm feeling kind of uneasy being on my own, right? Because Mercury is about relationships and control for you, and in opposition to Venus is about, am I ever going to find love again? Am I ever going to be secure? Am I ever going to be safe? Yes, but let's wait until Mercury gets out of this opposition with your Venus. You may notice that there's also like compulsive feelings in regards to like money or food or objects. So just observe, because Venus in Cancer can be food or emotionally related, and there can be a sense of being like, okay, I don't have the relationship, but I'm shopping, or I'm eating, or I'm overworking, or there can be something else that you're bringing in to fill the void. And I'm wondering if you're doing this in a positive way with Mercury in conjunction to your Neptune, where you're like, what can I do with this time? How can I be productive? How can I apply this time that I'm creating for myself to my work goals, to my financial goals, to rearranging my home, investing in my space, putting things in the home that may be like earthly elements that's going to make you feel secure. So I wonder, do you bring crystals in? Do you bring plants in? Do you do some gardening? Are you doing some work around the home? Are you working from home? Like, there's lots to be done with that opposition to kind of keep you distracted, right? That can be really productive. Relationships are going to open up when you have like a more positive Mercury transit. And so on one hand, I'm watching Mars come into your 7th house in February, where you would get curious about another person again. It's going to square Saturn. So it makes me feel that you're going to be like, I'm interested in seeing people. They're not coming in my house. They're not spending the night. They're not coming over. So if you do want to venture out and see if you can connect with people, they can't be in the home really. Oh, you have COVID right now, so you're not really at home. Okay, that's still going to extend until about mid-February. And I think sometimes, because Neptune can be illness, that this can be happening because it's like literally the universe being like, it's time for you to just stay down and just focus on what you can do at home and don't be focusing on other people. I would advise you, really up until the time that Mars comes out of a square with Neptune, that you're meditating, you're doing your clearing work at home, you're burning your candles, your sage, you're maybe pulling your own tarot cards. You're just like really honor Neptune coming into conjunction with your IC, and it's not time to have people kind of around. When do relationship opportunities present themselves? I definitely think it's going to get a lot better for you the end of March. Cool. So you'll be out of town. Okay. And the reason why I say March is because Mars is going to start coming into conjunction with your Mercury, which rules your 7th house. It looks like you'll have opportunities to have like a physical connection with somebody at the end of March. And you're also going to have Mercury coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So you've got a double whammy setting up where it's like end of March going into April, you're good. As a Sag rising, eclipses in your 5th house, Jupiter in your 5th house. Definitely looking like you're having fun, you're dating, you're having a good time. I would say be very careful, because Jupiter going into the 5th, it's going to come into conjunction with Mars, and you've got eclipses there in April. So you could bring in a younger person. It can feel like sudden, like love at first sight. It can be somebody who's foreign or somebody that likes to travel a lot. But the North Node, Jupiter and Uranus in the 5th house, to me is screaming hobbies. It's screaming taking chances, potentially new creative projects. Like, you need an outlet for that, because those are the 3 transits I see when like usually somebody either, gets pregnant or something of that nature. So Jupiter, North Node, Uranus, all that being in your 5th house is focus on having fun and going out and dating, and just be careful, because there can be opportunities for children that can come in there, especially because Jupiter is going to hit your Mars. So it can be something that starts really hot and heavy very quickly, and as it's coming into a sextile with your Venus, immediately it turns into this whole, we are enmeshed, we are merging with each other things. So if you're not trying to do that, be very careful. Equally, you're coming into your Saturn's return. So that's going to be more for you in 2024, but being a Sag rising with Saturn in Pisces, it has some connection to your home. And in the 3rd house, it's where do I want to live? How do I want to live? How do I communicate my living situation? And you got Saturn square your sun. So it tells me that something in regards to your Saturn return is going to be about discussing where you live, how you live, what you want your home to be like, anything like that in regards to relationships. And so because you're born with Saturn square the sun, you're used to this theme of relationships come in and I have that experience. And then it's left me thinking, oh my God, I didn't say all the things I should have said. I didn't communicate clearly. I didn't get the point across. So like now I need to kind of go into hermit mode. So there's like a act first, think later type of vibe. So with this chart, I would say your lesson is like learning with the sun in the 7th, not to let partners dominate you. And taking time to reflect and think and go for walks and journal so you can process things so you're not feeling like you're always just kind of getting consumed with relationships. That's like kind of the feeling that I'm getting. But it can be hard, you know, because you have the moon conjunct the south node, and you've also got the moon in opposition to Pluto. There seems to be some really strong nodal aspects in this chart that talk about where you're clearing out, letting go of women and letting go of maternal figures and letting go of habits. And the North Node Pluto as learning to go deeper into self-reflection and anything in regards to psychological things. So it can be shamanic work, it can be therapy. And usually moon opposed Pluto, there's a really interesting relationship with your mother and how that has really set the stage for sometimes having unhealthy emotional relationships with women, and where you can be super fearful of being alone, or when you're with them, they're too much, and just the effects that it has on you emotionally. And then that paired with like Venus in the 8th house in Cancer it's kind of wowzers. I mean, there's a lot of busyness and kind of wanting to kind of be stimulated by other people, but then when you get in it, it's like all consuming. Right? So you don't always know how to just date. So what you're learning is to kind of just take your time. Okay. And you'll learn more about that as your Saturn return kind of starts up in 2024. But that's the beauty of now, 27, 28, right? When you're having your progressed lunar return, you see the writing on the wall of what your Saturn return can be about. So I love talking to people when they're 26, 27, 28, because I can be like, hey, what's happening in your life right now? That could be your Saturn return. Let's turn it around. And in this situation, that's what's been happening. It's like you got lucky. Next time around, you could find yourself having to live with somebody because potentially you're going to have a kid. So learn how to communicate. I need space. Learn how to communicate. This is too much. Learn how to communicate. I haven't processed things. And it's learning to work yourself out of some of those patterns and some of those habits that you may have brought in from a past life, but also it can be in relation to your relationship with your mom. Okay? But yeah, love is not going to be a problem. Just know that you have, Venus in the 8th house, so strong and passionate and really emotionally sensitive and committed. And you've got Venus in opposition to Neptune, so there can be a tendency to put people on a pedestal and like overly idealize them. And then when you're in it, you're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. It looks different. And then you've got Venus in opposition to Uranus, so it's like coming and going, So there is definitely like a lot of things kind of going back and forth. But you'll learn to work through that. I think the Venus Uranus is knowing when to kind of shake things up in relationships, and that taking space can actually be good, and it can allow you guys to have space to just be and not lose your identity in the partnership, if that makes sense. Okay. Good luck, Austin. Keep us updated. We hope you feel better. With all that stuff going on with Neptune, foot reflexology, foot detoxing, like soaking and stuff through your feet, that's going to help kind of get rid of some of the effects of COVID in your system. Okay, so we've got Rayna, Crystal, Danielle, and Wendy. You guys are up next. All right, so let's pull Rayna. And that was 78. All right, so Rayna says, I started a job on November 1st, 22. We're going into the office on January 31st, hybrid. What should I expect? Am I going to be successful in this organization? I feel a strong connection with my boss. Cancer rising. So it's going to on the 31st. Everybody's been a Cancer rising tonight, huh? Okay, so you're going to have the sun trine the moon. So that's good for getting back into work. Mercury's out of retrograde. You're going to have Jupiter coming through your whole sign 10th. It's already conjunct your moon. And you're starting something new. So yeah, I'm not mad at this. I wonder though, because Neptune is still in an opposition to your sun, you know, if there's going to be like another change. So I noticed that you said that it's going to be hybrid, but like perhaps maybe they're going to like change, like they're going to change the schedule again. Like it's very possible that that may shift again. So anytime that planets are around that 22 to 25 degrees, because it's going to affect your third house and it's going to square planets that belong to your sixth house, there's going to be another scheduling change. But do I see it being a good move? Yeah. I mean, I think Jupiter coming into Aries is supposed to be giving you a new opportunity. I like that Jupiter is also going to try Neptune, so it makes me feel like you're going to like this scheduling change, and you may feel like more in sync or more in flow with what's kind of going down here. Romance it with the workplace. Perhaps maybe like when you see Venus making an aspect. I mean, Venus will be in opposition to Saturn on the 31st. So it's interesting because it's saying like you're going into work, but you're not necessarily getting a lot of togetherness with that person, or you're not feeling like you're getting a lot of the back and forth with that person. Like they may not communicate in a very romantic manner. And then when Venus comes into opposition with the sun, that's going to be another time to kind of look at whether or not you're like, oh, could this be a thing? And it'll oppose your sun. So I feel like you're trying to get his attention like the first 2 weeks, and he seems a little out of reach with that opposition. But perhaps when Venus gets into Aries and it's on your moon, you're getting love and appreciation from people at work around the third week of February. Then we're going to have Venus come into conjunction with Jupiter, which means still lots of love at work. And I think you're really getting into the groove of things by the beginning of March. You are going to see, you know, a Saturn opposed Saturn that's going to set up this year. So that's another reason why I think there's a scheduling change. I also wonder if you're going to be expected to do some kind of training or continuing education. That may come up, especially being at a 6. It does seem that there's going to be a need to adapt to new skills with Saturn and Pisces in opposition to Saturn. So I don't know what that may mean or how that may play out, but I'm seeing that especially starting in the spring going into the summer. In your chart, Saturn rules the 7th house of relationships, and because it's going to oppose Saturn, there can be a sense of him being like, I don't feel comfortable talking around other employees, or there may be a sense of him being a little iffy in terms of like being flirty via email or like during like any kind of like messaging or communication. So Saturn rules relationships for you. It also has connections to bosses. So I'm watching Saturn come into opposition with Saturn and square Neptune. So he may be a little hesitant about like communicating that way in the workplace. So just a heads up. And what you'll see also is Neptune's going to come into conjunction with your South Node. So it's not just Neptune in opposition to the Sun, which is, do I like this? Do I get in it and feel like it's too much? You know, am I making enough money? There can be question marks. And you've been in that for the last 2 years, so that's fading. But now Neptune is going to sit on the South Node. So you just be mindful that the South Node in the 10th house is about a releasing and a letting go, and Neptune is about superiors or bosses. Sometimes it can be about funding at a 26. So it is possible that you're like, okay, you know, like, do I want more? Do I want to grow more? Do I want to see if I can get to a higher position? And are they limited in terms of, you know, what's the term? In terms of like the budget, because it's at a 26. So it's going to be about what they realistically feel like they can spend. Oh, so you work a nonprofit. That's really good for Neptune. Yeah, that's really good for Neptune then. That's going to give you the opportunity to connect to that energy. And I'm wondering if there is going to possibly be a situation where there is a need to kind of let go of some people, right? Neptune at a 26, you might see that some people are kind of getting let go. I'm not saying you, but it is possible that you'll see that. I'm not really concerned about you though, because Saturn's not in a square to Neptune, but you may find that the company just undergoes a lot of changes and you've got people who are going to other departments and they're just kind of making changes with the budget. But personally, I feel like with the North Node going into Aries and Jupiter going through your 10th house, you're going to be connecting with other people, working with other people this next year. If they go through some kind of setbacks or cutbacks, it likely wouldn't be till 2024. And that'll be when Saturn comes into a square with Neptune, your natal Neptune, and Neptune sits on your south node. But I'm not seeing that right now. You're not there right now. As a Virgo, just know Jupiter going into Taurus is you're going to have to travel or you're going to have to train. One of those two things are going to happen. It looks like you're doing it with groups. So if they're saying, hey, we're keeping our staff on, but we want to make sure you guys know how to do X, Y, and Z, or we need you guys to go to this conference, you're going to have to go and do that stuff, right? And also another financial transit that you've got going on is you have Pluto now coming into Aquarius opposing your Jupiter, right? And Jupiter for a Cancer rising rules your whole sign 6th. So it means that they're going to say, we're adapting to, you know, a new workspace. We're adapting to new software. We're adapting to new staff. So that's two really big transits, right? The South Node on your Neptune, which does seem to be financial, relating to your job. Pluto, other people's money, 8th house in Aquarius, new systems opposing your Jupiter. So you're going to want to keep training and networking and like meeting other people to stay on top of your position. But I think it'll be fine. I'm not really worried about it. And right when Saturn is coming into your Placidus 10th house of career within the next year, it'll be next year, it's squaring Neptune. So it means that you're going to be like, do I want to go to another department? Do I need an assistant? Do I like this schedule? I feel like they're going to be changing the schedule all year, honestly. So there's going to be lots of changes that are going to happen here. So you might start a schedule and then they're like, we're tweaking it. We're bringing you guys back. We're giving you guys more time. Just be patient. And you'll see, especially in 2024, how that's going to land. Do you guys full-time decide that you're going to, you know, work from home? Do they decide that you're going to meet in a co-working space, you know, once a week? This is just going to keep alternating because mutable squares are about change. So just kind of roll with the punches. And I think by the time you get to the beginning of March, you're going to realize that you're digging it. Yeah, I think you're going to like it. Bosses can be a little tricky though. Eventually, as Saturn comes in conjunction with Neptune, it will sit on your south node. So this is 2 years from now, but I would say knowing that that's coming, be very careful if you're deciding to get involved with a boss, right? Because Saturn and Neptune will exactly oppose your sun. And that could materialize as being like, oh, you know, a boss has gone back and forth with you for a while and then goes, oh, I can't do a relationship in 2025. So I would say just be careful with that, especially because it'll oppose your sun. Really make sure you have clarity before you decide to kind of get involved. And don't be surprised if he's like all business the first couple months, okay? Good luck. Hopefully that was helpful for you. I appreciate it. I've got Crystal, Danielle, Wendy, and Amy up next. At some point, I'm going to have to take a break and put some people in. I don't know when I hit that period. I might be hitting that now. Let me see. Yeah, I think so. All right, let me just make sure that's the case. At some point, I always have to take a break and put you guys in. Crystal V. Yeah. Okay. So if you guys want to take a break or get a snack or whatever, give me a second. I'm going to plug the rest of these charts in. It'll take me probably about like 5 minutes. Should be pretty quick. Danielle, I don't have your time. Can you send that to me, please? If you have it. Oh, there we go. 7:55 p.m. Thank you. And that was in St. Paul. Thank you. You already missed the midheaven. I miss Mike. For sure. We talk all the time though. We're always sending each other memes. Amy, I need to know what your question is, unless you just want me to tell you about the new moon. 3:31. All right, almost done. For Stephanie, do you have your time? July 18th, 93. Do you know what time you were born? Thank you. 10:30 p.m. Thank you. Appreciate it. I got you. I'm just plugging all this info in. And Serena. One more and then we can get going. $219.79. All right, I think we got everybody. Awesome. Nope, you didn't miss anything yet, Rachel. You're good. Okay, so we've got Crystal, Danielle, Wendy, and Amy. You guys are on deck. Let's go ahead and pull Crystal. And I have got you here February 1st, 78, and that was in Longmont, Colorado. She says, how will this new moon affect me? Good question. So the new moon in Aquarius, as a Sagittarius rising, that's going to be taking place technically in your Placidus first house. So it is still all about the self. But when I fuse that with like the whole sign second, it's like how you're investing in yourself. Okay, so the physical sense of your body, how you feel in your skin, how you're prioritizing your self-esteem, you know, all of that good stuff. And that's happening right around the time, finally, we're going to get Pluto kind of off of your Mercury. So really interesting theme. Mercury retrograde in your first, Pluto's been conjunct Mercury, you've had Mars retrograde in your sixth. Have you been dealing with health issues? Or have you just been feeling like exhausted, or that you're trying to kind of figure out how to kind of navigate your schedule and be more productive? Has that been coming up? You've also got Neptune square your ascendant. So I'm wondering like if you've been feeling under the weather a little bit. But I think that with the new moon in your first house, it's like kind of setting the stage for a fresh start. Yeah, you've been exhausted. Setting the stage for a fresh start. I also really like the fact that the new moon trines your north node in Libra. And with that trine to Mars, it's incentivizing us. It's helping us kind of get things in order. You know, Mars is waking up now, and it's going to come into conjunction with Jupiter, which means like you're still going to have a lot of work all the way through March. This isn't going to slow down. And what the retrogrades in your first and your sixth are teaching you is that you have to really take care of your physical body, and you need to make time for yourself, and you need to also kind of unwind sometimes, okay? You're going to see this more as like Neptune gets closer to 27 degrees. It's going to square your ascendant and your descendant, which means like in the third house, you need time to go for a walk. You need time to meditate. You need time to journal. You need time to get out of town and take a weekend off sometimes and like literally decompress. It's very important. And you're in Saturn opposed Saturn, right? So all of these things combined are telling me pay attention to your body. So this new moon can be like today and tomorrow kind of emotional as the moon goes through Pluto and it hits your natal Mercury and you're like clearing stuff out, right? So set intentions in regards to your body. Now, Aquarius is also within a couple degrees at 0 of Aquarius is in opposition to Mars. So this is telling me that you've got other people that like need you. They're like, you know, they need your help, or family that needs you, or clients that need you. So like this Mercury retrograde, the moon in opposition to Mars is like people pushing you, and you're like, I just want to be left alone. And if you're feeling like you want to make physical changes or body changes, all of my late degree Sag rising or my early degree Capricorn risings, now is the time, right? Now that Mars is direct, you have more energy and you can make changes in your schedule, or you can cut back on bad habits. Particularly Mars in Gemini is like when you're not getting little things done, quick little things, or when you have bad habits, especially like smoking. That can be something that comes up with Mars in the 6th. And then the Mercury retrograde in your first. So it's like, you know, a lot of this is learning how to put your arms out in front of you and go, no, I got to take care of me first. No, I can't be jumping in and doing things for other people or overscheduling myself or whatever. And I think of like Mars being in your 6th house as you can bring in hot liquids. You can bring in spicy things. So I saw that you said spicy and sugar are your favorite. My advice would be Sag rising can kind of be like, you know, you guys are little sugar addicts. Doing like quick, high intensity workouts, like those, I don't know what they call them. I think they call them like HIIT, where instead of being like, oh, I got to go to the gym and be there for, you know, an entire hour, you're doing like 60 seconds of, you know, like a certain exercise. You're doing 60 seconds of, you know, plank or push-ups, or you're doing jumping jacks. So they're quick and they're short. That's what Mars and Gemini wants. And it's the arms, right? So Gemini is about the arms. So I'm wondering, like, do you decide that you're going to say, hey, I'm going to go for a power walk for 15 minutes before I start my day, or I'm going to take weights with me and keep them by my office, and, you know, once every couple hours I'm going to, you know, do a little bit of like lifting little hand weights, something quick. And that's going to help you get into the habit of just getting a little bit more used to kind of working out. And I also feel like I would really be paying attention to the Mercury retrograde that's coming into opposition with Mars, because it tells me that you're putting some things on back burner for other people when you need that time for yourself. It can also mean that you need someone to incentivize you. So like that Mercury in opposition to Mars might be a good idea to like look into getting a trainer or getting a health coach who's going to incentivize you to make these changes. It can also be a time where you have a coworker or a friend and you're like, yeah, we're going to work out together. Or we're going to hold each other accountable. That's an easier way to use the Mercury-Mars opposition. But you're born with that opposition. So you're used to kind of having some intensity with people and telling people what's up and giving them direction. But I think that what's going on with the Pluto transit is you're realizing that you kind of need a little bit of that assistance. And I see health issues or health changes happen when we have really strong Mercury transit. So Mercury is coming off of a conjunction with Pluto. So mental health gets better. You start speaking kinder to yourself. And then we're going to start seeing that, Jupiter and Uranus over these next 2 years are going to trine Mercury, which really belongs to your whole sign second. So really what it comes down to is what you're eating, right? And I think Mercury in Capricorn is like learning to be really strict and routine with how often you eat, what you're eating, the amounts you're eating. Everybody knows like it really does come down to what you're eating. Fitness is great, but it really does come down to what you're eating. And so I think that it's been like a mental struggle with Pluto on your Mercury, or maybe you've been working so much that you don't think about what you're eating, right? And Pluto can be about processed food, things that are not good for you. So it's kind of teaching you that you need to have stuff that's going to have more iron in it, Capricorn. So think of like leafy greens, or if you want to just be doing like hot soups, you can be doing that too. Bone broths and things like that with Mars in your 6th house. And break your meals up, because Gemini is 2. So I could see you being like, okay, I'm going to eat a little bit here and a little bit there. So maybe space your meals out a little bit, or take your meal and cut it in half and have it in 2 separate time periods. And over the next year or so, when Uranus opposes your moon and your natal Uranus, you're going to find that it's really incentivizing you to find ways to work out that seem like fun. So I like that you said you joined a group weight loss challenge, but I think that you might do like dance classes and playing sports with friends and doing things that are more creative in regards to health and fitness, right? But yeah, take this opportunity to kind of set the stage for, especially the trines to Mars in your 7th house, to focus on a fresh start for your body and feeling like you're going to be more active. For me, like if I'm going to start a new habit, if I'm going to cut something out of my diet, if I'm going to start a new routine, if I'm going to start a new hobby, I always do it during a new moon. And I like that in this chart, it's trining your 6th house. So it's saying that you're committed to staying on task with that and getting it done. So yeah, see how it goes. It takes 21 days to make a habit, right? And 28 days is the lunar transit. So I always encourage people to try to kind of do something for a whole month. Especially when you're starting it with a new moon like this, and you'll kind of find that, maybe it becomes a part of your everyday routine, right? If you keep at it. Good luck. We're sending you lots of good health vibes. Hopefully that improves. So I've got Danielle here, and she is July 25th, 77. And then she wants me to look at May 6th, 88. And she says, what do you see for our love life? He goes in and out. We've been going back and forth for a long time. Like when we actually were exclusive and settled down, will we actually be exclusive and settle down like married, or at least living together? Okay. So let's look. I first want to look at your chart because I'm kind of curious before I throw this person in. So I've got you here as a Cap rising. And then your sun is in Leo. So Pluto's coming into an opposition with your sun. So it does tell me you're getting a little antsy and feeling like you need to kind of say to people, like, which way is it going to go? Are we doing this? Are we not doing this? This will be a long-term transit. Pluto going through your 1st house where you change and transform and you become aware of your power, and it's challenging relationships because it's going to oppose your sun. And you got Jupiter and Venus conjunct, which I like, but it's in Gemini. So it's in an air sign, so it's kind of flighty, and it trines your north node. So there is a sense of like having options, having choices, having the opportunity for more than one. You got a lot of karma in regards to relationships, boo-boo. Sun, Saturn in your 7th house. So that tells me that you're working through issues revolving around security and self-esteem with relationships. I have seen usually if somebody's got their Sun or their Saturn in their 7th house, they get married after 30. And you've been in your Saturn opposition. So you're like, what's going on? Why doesn't somebody want me? When do we move forward? And it's all been with squares to Uranus. So it's been like, are we going to be together? And are we moving in together? And it's just, it has not hit in this last year and a half because of the squares. What you want to look for is a really strong lunar transit. And so what you've got working in your favor right now is that Jupiter is trining your moon. So it's saying it is possible for you to expand in relationships. You have also got eclipses that happen in your 4th house where home and relationship changes can happen. Jupiter is going to go into your whole sign 4th house. To me, I would say that what you want to pay attention to, because this is kind of complex, is like, you know, the North and the South Node are going to square your Sun, okay? And then Pluto is going to oppose. So that's going to be like over the spring. And I feel like that's you being like, either you're with it or you're not with it. And this is like April, May, June, right? And then you have a Venus retrograde over the summer in your chart, which is, which way are we going to go? Are we living together or not? To me, that's screaming like ultimatums. When Jupiter and Uranus are in your 4th house and it squares the 7th, it's like, we're doing this and we're doing this now. And it may be a good thing. It might mean that it happens very quickly. Because at the same time, you're going to have the Sun and Juno on your Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which makes me feel like, yes, you were at least talking about it, or you've met the person you're going to do that with, okay? So let me throw this other person's chart on top of this. Let's take a look and let's see what's kind of going on. Keep in mind, okay, Saturn is now coming into opposition with your Mercury, which makes me feel like this is going to be somebody who's not sure if they want long-term commitment right now. But let's plug that other chart in. So that'll be, there we go. I just did a Sun on the ascendant chart because we don't know his time. So he's a Taurus Sun and he's got his Venus also in Gemini. And his moon is in Capricorn. So funny. This is like the kind of person that you're like, okay, dude, like at some point, we're going to be together, and you're kind of like waiting for him to like figure that out, or you're kind of reminding yourself like, okay, it's pretty obvious we're a good match and it's just a matter of time. And I don't know if you've seen like my readings. I think other people in the chat will vouch that it's not often that I say something like that. But I'm saying that because you got a lot of good things going on here, right? So you might be kind of agitated being like, I know that this is going to be a thing, like just give it up already. What do you have good going on in this relationship chart? Well, his moon is conjunct your ascendant, so emotionally you can read each other very well. He's on the same page. Capricorn moon men are kind of cold. But because it's on your ascendant, like he understands work and respect and commitment and all of that stuff. So that's a good connection. 2, you've also got a guy who has got his Sun in a trine to your ascendant, and he's got his Sun and his Jupiter that are basically conjunct your 4th house. So it's a lot of like, obviously you should just live with mama. Like, you know, like we could have a life together. I like his Sun Jupiter in your 4th house because it makes me feel like he enhances the ability, it's on the cusp of your 4th house, to communicate about home and family. So I think it's a matter of like doing the domestic stuff a little bit. Like trying to kind of be like, let's have some more overnights and like, let's see if we can like have more time together so we can get into the flow of like living together and see how it goes. He also has his Venus in the same sign as your Venus. So that's nice as well. You guys have the same kind of love language. And your Jupiter is right on top of his Venus. That's like really, really, really great aspects. I think the problem is that you guys have Juno opposed Juno. So you guys have 2 different ways of like partnering, where you have Juno and Scorpio, where you're like, I will give you everything and I need it to be public. Juno on the midheaven. It's like you want to know that you're taken and you want to be able to show that you're with this person. And he's got Juno in Taurus, which is in your 4th house, which is kind of like more private. So you might feel like behind the scenes, things are good. You guys are all together and everything, but you're lacking that sense of like putting it out into the world, right? And I mean, You know, you've got Scorpio and you've got Leo in your chart, and his sun opposes your Uranus and squares your sun. So it means basically there's a lot of like him not wanting to be told what to do. If you've got Uranus in opposition to his sun, it's like you tell him to go left and he goes hard right, right? You got to use a little bit of reverse psychology with this man. Taurus suns that have their sun in opposition to Pluto also, there's like a storyline there in regards to people overpowering them, like telling them what to do. And it can be relating to his father. It can be like he's got a past history of having some kind of like abuse where he wasn't treated very kindly. So he can get kind of standoffish, and there can be a sense of like once he feels like he's being pushed into something, he pushes back. So just be mindful. I don't know what the deal is. Mars has been going retrograde through your guys' Venuses, so there can be a sense of you guys going back and forth since about October, November. And now you're trying to figure out how you guys can kind of connect and stay together more consistently. For Tauruses, South Node eclipses are happening opposition to their sun, so there's a sense of letting go of some relationships. And for Cap risings, you guys have Jupiter and eclipses going into your 5th house. So you're like, I want love, I want fun, I want babies. And if you don't want children, then it's about feeling like you're creating a home dynamic where you have a family. So just a heads up, like all these transits are happening for you. Is it going to happen? I would say that the pressure is going to increase, especially exponentially between like now and February. I would give this until the better part of about July or August to see if he's going to come around. And I feel like the writing's on the wall that if this is a situation where you do not see him easing into wanting to do more domestic things, then you're going to have to kind of cut him loose. I will say for Tauruses, though, the Venus retrograde is going to be about some karmic thing going on in a relationship to his home and a woman, which can literally involve him going back to a Leo and being like, okay, fine, I'm ready to do this. You would really want to look at not just the synastry, you really want to look at the composite chart as well. So yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, if I'm not telling you to lay off, but I am saying with Pluto in opposition to your sun, there is going to be a situation where you're going to be like, I know what I want, I know what I'm doing, and if you're not with it, you're out. And like that might be enough to make him like realize like, oh, wow, okay, you know, I might potentially lose this one. I have to kind of get the show on the road. But I'm usually pretty critical about like synastry and stuff. When you guys have really good synastry, I feel like his Mars is in opposition to your Mercury. You're going to try to tell him what to do. He's not going to like it. Your Uranus is in opposition to his sun. You're going to try to push him to change. He's not going to like it. The best way to navigate this is to basically look at it and go, this person's super stubborn. I love them. I know that they're not always going to want to kind of get with the program. And he's got Mars in a square to his sun and his Pluto. So I think that what he's learning is that he wants to be the leader, and I think it's a matter of reminding him, if you want to be the leader, if you want to, you know, be the person who's in charge, then you need to take action. You might hear him bitch and complain about his career stuff and like whether or not he's seeing some of the growth that he wants to see, and I would be like, get out there and make it happen. You just need to keep incentivizing him. You have to be kind of tough love with him. But I do think that this is like I really think this is a good match. I just think that I would give this until about March, April, and see if you guys can do more domestic stuff. And the tide can turn in July and August, and you may find with those transits that is when things shift. But I'm also taking into consideration you've got Venus in Gemini. It means there's always going to be another option. There's always going to be two, right? And you've got Mars in opposition to the moon, which means that when you go out there and have fun and you open up your options and you see what else is out there and they realize that you're not just purely focusing on them, it will incentivize them to come to you. That's the moon Mars opposition in your chart. You know, and two Venus and Geminis are a good match, but I think that because you guys always like to know that there's another choice, it's very, very likely that is kind of creating some of the issues here, that he wants to feel like he has the choice in the matter, or that there is opportunity for other people. Not that he's looking for it, but he's looking for other people. And just realize that the way he commits, if it's going to be with you, it's not going to be in this really big public way, the way that you're looking. It's going to be, okay, I live with you, we have a home together, we pay bills together. Very Juno, Taurus, 4th house. But yeah, turning points are going to be, I would say like April, May, and then July and August. And I definitely think this is a good match. You guys have a lot of really good aspects, but this is one of those people that if you love them, you just have to let them be because they have so many oppositions and fixed squares. Good luck. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Wendy, Amy, and then Michael. I saw Wendy's comment a long time ago. Let's see what Wendy said if I can find her here. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Where is she? There she is. I've been promoted as a manager and I want to know if I'm going to crush it. My person I want to be with is moving to a different city. Is this going to work out for us? Fillers? Which one do you want to know? You want work? You want relationship stuff? You want fillers? Let's see. Let me pull your chart up. I will say now that everything's direct at the end of the month, it's fine to do fillers. It is okay to do that. Just wait. Once Venus comes out of a conjunction with Saturn, but I think that's like the next couple days. Okay, so let's look for Wendy. Okay, so new job at work. Are you going to crush it? Of course you're going to crush it. Saturn's coming into your 10th house, right? So that's about management, being the boss, you know, focusing on that stuff. And Venus is coming into conjunction with Saturn as well. So that's also really good for you because that's basically talking about you being able to kind of run things, you know, take responsibility for things and kind of feeling like you're getting the recognition that you deserve. Precursor of your second Saturn return, but still nevertheless. In regards to like the relationship stuff, something that you are going to see is as Saturn goes into your 10th house, it's going to start coming into an opposition with Uranus and Pluto in your 4th. And that's going to represent like where you're coming and you're going back and forth for work and where you're living. Okay, so the opposition is the opportunity. So it may materialize finally in 2024 being like, work is leading me to live in a completely different place, right? Relationships for you are more Jupiter. And so I see like Mars coming into a conjunction with your Jupiter again. It's been back and forth several times. Here's the finale at 18 degrees. It looks like that's going to be the end of February, the beginning of March. And when Mars hits your Jupiter, it's going to be whether or not that relationship breaks through and you go the distance. It is in the 12th house, so it might go from being hidden to being visible. And Mars will come into a square with Neptune. So it makes me feel like there's a lot of not having clarity in relationships until the end of March because you got planets in your 10th house focusing on work. It's squaring Jupiter, which is in your 12th, which is hidden. It's opposing the 4th house of home. There's a lot of like, I'm not going to say missing each other, but like back and forth. Somebody's in one place, somebody's working, somebody's, you know, traveling. Like there's just not a lot of things coming together until the second half of March. But I think Mars coming into conjunction with Jupiter, it can be sexy, it can be fun when you guys have time to see each other and spend time together and work on things. But you're like in full-blown boss mode with Saturn going into your 10th house, right? And what's really nice also is just being that you're a Cancer, you're going to hear with Saturn going into the 9th house from your Sun, traveling, training, teaching, mentoring. So you're going to have opportunities to do all those things. I think it's just a matter of like getting on the same page in terms of your schedule and like knowing when you're going to be working and traveling and when you're going to have downtime and how you can like fit or figure out the relationship stuff into that. And that's going to be important as Saturn goes into Pisces further in 2024. As you have your Saturn return, it's going to mirror Saturn square Jupiter, which means you're focusing on work and sometimes relationships take a back burner or they're private or it's only when you have time. And then Saturn in opposition to Pluto and Uranus, which is basically saying you go through changes at work and changes at home, and it reactivates that Jupiter square. So there's going to be a lot of stuff in the next year or two with your second Saturn return, which is like, you know, like where do relationships sacrifice because I'm focusing so much on my career, and where do I feel like I can't really be public when it comes to my relationships and issues revolving around where you're working and where you're living if you guys are in two different places. It doesn't mean it won't work, okay? I'm confident that with Saturn, with Mars coming into its final hit with Jupiter, that you're going to have some clarity here sometime before the beginning of March in regards to whether or not this can go the distance. I also am really liking the fact that Jupiter is going to be in your 11th house, trining your 7th. So it's saying relationships can be a thing. You can have togetherness. There can be romance. You can go out with friends. You can have a good time. So Jupiter going through Aries is really supportive of you being able to branch out and actually feel like you can have a relationship and you have a social life, right? It means you're going to have to be open to making that time and traveling and kind of bringing other people into the relationship, not letting it be all work and no play, and integrating them into your life socially. So it's about not just kind of having the relationship behind closed doors, right? That seems to be like a really big theme. Personally, you were asking about like filler stuff. Better timing will be after the Venus-Saturn conjunction this weekend. And when Venus is getting into Pisces, where it's going to be exalted, would be better, especially because you have like a Cap moon. So yeah, the latter part of January. And you could also do something else like when Venus is coming into a sextile with your moon, which would be like the first week of February. Okay. That seems to be like the times that are to be better doing this, especially because Venus is going to trine your Neptune. So yeah, all the way up until the first week, you know. Thank you, my dear. Thanks for checking in. It was nice to see you. I'm sure I will see you soon. Congrats on the job stuff. Is Amy here? Amy, you definitely got a reading. I got your info, but I do not have your question. So can you let me know? Cap moon. She's a cappy. I'll give Amy a second to kind of pop in. Let's see what she says. Amy, let me know if you have a question. Otherwise, I'll just do the new moon. I'm going to take Michael. Let's see if she leaves me a comment. If she doesn't, then I will just do the new moon for her. So Michael. There we go. Michael is October 14th, 1990 in Texas, 2:10 p.m. Cap rising, a lot of you guys. And then we've got Sun in Libra and the moon in Virgo. Michael says, interesting the new moon is near my north node. Any thoughts on this and other things to look forward to? You got me really interested last reading when you highlighted my moon, Uranus 12th, and all the Saturn, Sun, Mercury things. I have a best friend whose moon is on my south node and Venus, Sun in my second, Mars in my first. We're like brothers, really cool. Awesome. I'm glad that sparked you learning more about it. Really good question. So the nodes relate to the moon in general, right? So having the nodes relate to the moon and then you have a north node, new moon conjunction is pretty potent, right? So let's kind of break this down. For starters, the north node talks about what is new, unusual, different, right? And so is Aquarius. It talks about the future. At a 4, it's about future home, future emotions, future feelings, future nurturing. Yeah, by whole sign standards, it can be how am I making more money to buy or own or possess a home? Sure, but it's in your first house. So I think it's more about how you're feeling about your own security. New moon's in the first house, opportunity for a fresh start for yourself. New moon on the north node, ruled by Uranus, and you've got natal Uranus in the 12th and transit Uranus in the 4th. It looks like you're dreaming about a new future home, or you're dreaming about a new vision for your life and what your home could look like, or where you may live, or what you may organize. These are physical things because it's in earth signs. And I think because this is Aquarius, you're realizing that there's this sense of needing to focus more on vibration, manifestation, intuition, kind of fine-tuning the body so you can like see these things coming. So you might get more active in like anything in regards to dream interpretation. That could come up as well. Anybody who's got Uranus in their 12th house, you have precognitive dreams, but you got Saturn and Neptune there too. So it's that time that you take to stand away from other people, to kind of like get away from the crowds and decompress and really reflect, right? It's like alone time spiritually with yourself, meditation, sleep, whatever. And you had a Mercury retrograde there. So it's interesting that the retrograde's been going through all these planets, hitting Uranus, and also it's been hitting your Neptune, getting you ready for this new version of yourself. Equally, I know you've had a run with Saturn and Pluto for the last few years, but Pluto's coming up on your North Node here pretty soon. And that tells me that it's going to be a total transformation of just how you nurture yourself, how you carry your energy, how you empower yourself. So anybody who's got, you know, a North Node or any personal planets right around, let's say like 29 of Cap to 4 degrees of Aquarius, this new moon's pretty potent because it's setting the stage for this oncoming Pluto transit. Pluto in the North Node is going to be, like I said, empowering yourself, maybe working for yourself, maybe transforming yourself in some significant way. So great time to do that. I'm a fan of like eclipses on the North Node when you're having your nodal transits, or outer planets on the North Node. And I would just say embrace whatever changes are coming, even if it's scary. And it's about kind of letting go of older versions of yourself. It's at, you know, 0 degrees, so it's squaring your midheaven, and it's also squaring your IC. So that also tells me it's about where you're actively making changes with your career, and you're also making changes also with your home, right? So it's mirroring the Uranus square and all that other fun stuff. And I would really focus on taking time alone to see what kind of comes up for you in terms of what these new intentions are going to be. And you can work with vibration, you can work with binaural beats, you can work with sound healing, you can write down your intentions and start focusing on vocalizing them. You're in a really strong period of having gone through a really long period of healing and transformation. Saturn and Pluto have been on your ascendant, they've been in opposition to your Chiron, finally it's moving away. So when Pluto hits your North Node, after it's hit all of these personal planets, I think that's the empowerment phase, personally. That's what I think. So you can kind of get the show on the road with kind of figuring that out now. And it doesn't make too many other aspects other than that. You know, that seems to be the only other aspects that it's making. Not quite trining any of your Libra stuff. You're going to maybe you're going to get some positive effects from that, though, when planets get further into Aquarius. So when Mercury comes, when the sun comes, yeah, he will. So focus on those intentions in regards to yourself, especially your emotions, right? Because I think this is about transforming and letting go of past versions of yourself and how that may feel. Yeah, and you're also coming into the nodes square your nodes. I just saw that. So that's kind of like where you're like, what the hell am I doing? You know, having the South Node on your midheaven, you're going to feel like that anyway. But when the transiting North and South nodes square the nodes, I have a North Node in Aquarius too. I had this, I think last summer. And I was literally like, I give up. Like there were things that I was like, I don't know how to do this. So I just need to kind of accept the fact that I need to learn new skills. I had to push myself out of my comfort zone with some stuff. Kind of see some similar things here. And the fact that it's happening within your career, it's pushing you to change who you are so you can change your career. And it's also squaring your relationships and focusing on home. So it's complex, but it's about embracing new home situations. So it's bringing it all back to that North Node new moon ruled by Uranus in the 12th house. Start envisioning where your life is going, not where you've been, you know? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Michael. Jolie says, you had the Pluto on your North Node. I'm curious, do you want to tell us what happened with that transit? What's up, Stephanie? How's it going? Is Amy here? Or am I seeing things? Is that you, Amy? Tifa? I'm not sure if your name is different or not. I wanted to know besides... Okay, so if you got a reading, let me know. Okay, so Amy, I'm going to go back to you. I'm going to do your new moon reading because I did not hear from you. Make sure that we get this. And that's Amy Williams. Okay, so I've got you here March 31st, 1970. 3:15 p.m. Oh, okay. Oh, no, nope, this is Amy. So I've got you here, Virgo rising, and your sun is in Aries, and your moon is in Capricorn. Oh boy. So in regards to the new moon, okay, I'll just start with that. The new moon is still going to be in your 5th house. It's very close to your moon, so it's kind of happening with your lunar transit. So you're going to be seeing that, Pluto's coming into conjunction with your moon, which is a pretty significant transit about healing through crisis in relation to your emotions. Could be your childhood, your friends, right? Because the moon rules your 11th house. If you have children, that can be coming up as well. Please go and study Pluto coming into conjunction with your moon. It'll be a transit that's going to go on and off for the next year. Home changes can happen, but also opportunity for healing through crisis. At least you're in Pluto trine Pluto, so that's helping you as well. Now, the new moon's going to be in your 5th house of creativity, lovers, children, and having fun. So you might start a new hobby, focus on a new hobby, focusing on what's going to make you happy. This seems to be really strongly tied to your Pluto moon transit because it's also in a square to Venus. So what you may find is that there's been issues revolving around like love and freedom versus your emotions and feeling like a little emotionally landlocked sometimes. That's not unusual when you have a Capricorn moon, especially in the late degrees. This new moon is going to be making a sextile to your Chiron, so it's going to open it up and make it possible for you to focus more on healing work, especially anything in regards to healing the self. I see that you've been in your Chiron return, so you have been moving through the motions of healing the self, Aries, but because Chiron is also conjunct your Sun and Mercury, healing issues regarding joint finances, loss, grief, regeneration, death, letting go. And so this new moon supports that because the 8th house has like a very Pluto feel, but because it's also sextiling. So using creativity and love and inspiration to liberate the self and love the self and work through issues regarding security or feeling supported by other people. Sexual healing, Tantra, Kundalini can be really helpful with these transits. And also with Pluto on the moon, okay? So that can help you move through some of the heavier kind of themes. Usually when I see like a Chiron or like a 10th house transit, that's death and regeneration themes. Same thing with Pluto transits, you got it doubly. So when I say death, it doesn't mean it has to be physical death. It can mean a job ends, a relationship ends, you sell your home, you relocate, you go through like a dark night of the soul. So it's kind of mirroring that when I look at the Jupiter in your 8th house. But what you're going to bring in from that is opportunities to kind of heal yourself. And it can be psychic healing or spiritual healing as well. So I like that for Virgo rising. You'll hear that the new moon in Aquarius in your 6th house is new habits, yes, but it's going to sextile your 8th. So it's helping you kind of deal with detoxing and releasing and letting things go. This new moon also trines your natal Uranus. So I like the fact that that's in your 2nd house. You're adapting and changing with resources and relationships as well. Lots of inner child work, lots of really focusing on, like I said, using creativity as the outlet for being able to navigate that. That's really the way through this, and accepting almost like what has to end right now, whatever that may be. I don't know what it is, but something should be ending. As Mercury's been going retrograde in the 5th house, also there's been a lot of reflecting on what makes me happy, what's going to bring me joy, what do I love? And so this can kind of prompt you to go, I'm getting back into this hobby, or I'm going to start this new thing that I really enjoy. And it can be about doing it more regularly and integrating and spending more time with friends or like a group of other people. That's the other way that I look at it. And you'll see more of this really evolve as Jupiter and Chiron, move off of your sun. And they start coming into conjunction with your natal Mercury, which rules your chart, which makes me feel like you're kind of coming out the other side the end of March, beginning of April, and you're like, I've healed, and this is what I've learned, and this is where I'm at. And it's like, it's actually really great. Like, I think that you're going to have like a breakthrough, and you may be finding that you're more open to relationships, or you've done a lot of relationship healing. And you're not feeling like afraid or abandoned, because that Sun Mercury in the 8th can be fearful of people getting too close, especially because you have your Sun opposed Uranus. So it's like not feeling safe with others, not feeling safe with finances, and this kind of feeling like, everybody just goes, so like, what's the point of attaching? And you may really kind of work through some of that stuff over the next couple of months and have a breakthrough. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. You might have gone to sleep, or maybe we missed you, but I just wanted to make sure we got your reading. Okay, so we've got Rachel, Estefany, Serena, and Bowen. So I've got you guys. Thanks for your patience. Let's pull Rachel up. And there we go, Rachel. Rachel says, what type of relationship should I be looking out for? A husband or casual dating? Ooh, good question. So Rachel's chart, Virgo rising, Sun in Taurus, and her moon is in Gemini. So when we look at relationships, committed relationships, you know, the 7th house, right? So you've got Neptune is your 7th house lord, so is Jupiter. Neptune's there right now. Your 7th house is at an 11. So I don't know if I've said this before, but it does say that relationships will sprout literally through friendships. So seeking friendships first is the way to go, right? Equally, your 7th house lord is in the 4th, so people from the past may come back, but it belongs to your whole sign 5th, so it means that they might be younger. You might meet people who are younger, or they're younger but they're mature, or you meet them through work, or you meet them at a bar, or you meet them when you're going and having a good time. I think like Capricorn Neptune in the 5th makes me feel like you might go out with friends and people from work and then you meet somebody, or you might go out with friends from work and then somebody from the past runs into you, or they call you, something of that nature. And then 2, you know, Venus and Saturn are connecting over the next couple days. You're not a Venus-based chart, so it's not going to affect you as much, but I feel like it's not very lovey-dovey energy because it's squaring your Mars. So you're like, I'm talking to people, I'm getting to know them, but I'm not like pursuing them seriously at this moment. Maybe you've been a little hesitant also because Mercury's been retrograde, but here comes Mercury in conjunction to your natal Jupiter. So actually, you might find that whoever you're talking to, you might actually really connect with somebody. And I have a feeling it's going to be right around January 24th through the 27th. Pay attention to those dates. Mercury, which is you, is going to conjunct Jupiter, which is someone else in the 5th. Then we've also got the moon that's going to go through your 7th house. And then we're going to have the moon that's going to come into conjunction with Venus. So actually keep socializing, meeting people, right? Likely, until you see like Venus and Neptune come into conjunction, that might be something more. That'll be mid-February. And when like the sun is coming into conjunction with the 7th house and Saturn moves into Pisces, which will be a part of the 7th house. So we're looking at closer to March. Where will commitment happen, right? We need to see an aspect between like Saturn and also like Neptune. So what I do see happening is when Saturn goes into Pisces in March, it's immediately going to start sextiling your Neptune. So it makes me feel like you've met somebody, you're more consistent and like committed to like having like a regular like schedule where you're like, okay, we see each other every Friday, or we, you know, spend every other weekend together, or we go out to dinner every Wednesday, whatever. And there's like some more consistency behind that. At the same time, Neptune in the 7th house, which represents like other people who can be saints or sinners, is squaring your moon. So you're like wanting to define, are we in a relationship or are we something more? Like, what are we doing here? And you're not going to be crazy about not having anything defined. So you're going to want to have that more secure. That's an important lesson over this next year, especially as you get into 2024 when Saturn and Neptune start squaring your moon. You do not want to do the friends with benefits type of thing. What's also nice is that when Saturn in 2024 gets into your 7th house fully, it's sextiling your sun. So I could see you having like a lot more opportunity for like commitment and feeling like you're kind of going the distance in a relationship. So it's going to take about a year. It doesn't mean it'll take that long to be in a committed relationship, but you'll see that more stuff is just kind of sticking then. And I would say friends all the way. And friends doesn't just mean that you have to just be hanging out with guys and being like, we're friends. I mean, going out with friends is going to incentivize you connecting with people as well, because it belongs to your whole sign 5th and it's in the 4th. And I have this really strong feeling that when Saturn starts sextiling your Jupiter, you're going to be in a very committed relationship in 2024, you know? For Virgo risings, you guys got to get through the Venus retrograde that's going to be in your 12th house. You might suddenly start having dreams about somebody from the past and then they come back. And you may also find that there's somebody that you have unfinished business with that you have to kind of complete. But for the most part, Saturn sextile your Sun, sextile your Jupiter, you're sitting pretty good these next 2 years in regards to relationships. Just be very clear about wanting to be with your best friend. You need that foundation of a friendship with an 11 on your descendant first. And the Mercury retrograde, I mean, it's like Mercury is going to come into conjunction with Jupiter. You might strike gold. You might meet somebody and have an amazing conversation and you're like, this could be something really significant. And it looks like that's setting up right around the beginning of February. You know, so always when your first house lord and your 7th house lord meets, especially when it's in the 5th house of romance or the 7th house of commitment, it can be a really good thing. You can have like a really amazing chance encounter because Jupiter is about striking gold, right? So hopefully you that makes sense and you connect with somebody like that. I'm sure you will. All right, so we've got a Stephanie. Thank you for your patience. This was her first time asking a question, so welcome to the channel. I've got you here July 18th, 1993 in San Juan. Here she is. Her question for me was, first time reading, I want to know if I will finally find love. Good question. Well, you got natal Jupiter in the 7th house, which is good for relationships. Your 7th house lord is Mercury, and Mercury is located retrograde in the 4th, which means there's like a sense in this lifetime of reviewing, going back, rethinking, reworking relationships. And you've got Mercury in opposition to Neptune and Uranus. So there's a sense of like, where's my partner? Where are they? What's going on with work? Like there's like it's a stressful aspect between Mercury and Neptune and Uranus. So there can be a sense of meeting people in other countries, meeting people from other places, foreign shores, even people from the past that may come back once you get older, you know? Relationships, I mean, it's interesting because you got Saturn in the 12th house. So that means part of your Saturn return, especially as that's coming up here soon, you're learning to be okay being by yourself. I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's what it's about. And you've also got Neptune sitting on your ascendant, which is about feeling, you can feel alone, you can feel detached. There can be a sense of like having lots of spiritual development, psychic development, but being like, why am I here? What am I doing? Where is my person? Because it's opposing your 7th house. But here's what's interesting. Neptune right now, it's trining your Mercury. So it's saying like you have the opportunity to meet people. They're likely going to be in another place. Okay. They could be in another state. They could be in another city. You are going to be turning 30 this year, right? Because you're born in 1993. So you're going to be in an annual perfection year 7, which means right when you have your birthday from this year to next year, your 7th house is about marriage is getting activated. So you want to look at Mercury and what's going on with Mercury. So if we go ahead into the future and we look at from July of 2023 to 2024, Mercury will be your time lord. So you need to pay attention to all the Mercury retrogrades. What I'm noticing is you're going to have Juno coming into conjunction with Mercury. So that can be an indication you're going to meet someone. You have got a Mercury retrograde that's going to be in Virgo. So be mindful you can have some connection from somebody unexpectedly, some communication connection when Mercury goes retrograde in September. And between Mars and the Sun and Mercury all being in your 7th house, sextile Mercury in your 4th, yes, I think you're going to find someone. I think they live in another area. Virgo can be servants, assistants, people you work with, people you meet at a hotel, in a lobby, like a gym, any of these things. And it's all going to be in opposition to Neptune. So there's going to be this sense of being like, oh my God, this person's coming in, like, ooh, give me my space. So you might feel overwhelmed by whatever's going on in August and September and kind of feel like, okay, like it's too much. But it's all going to sextile Mercury and it's going to trine your 10th house. So actually, yeah, relationship stuff looks very possible July, August, September. We'll be in a Venus retrograde, but that's okay. You know, the retrograde is going to be in opposition to your Saturn, which means very likely the person that you connect with, you're going to be like, but we work together, or we go to the same gym, or like, I don't know, like there's some sense of you kind of feeling like you're not totally sold on it. You've also got Venus conjunct the South Node. So that means that you did not come here in this lifetime focusing on Venus related things. Specifically, the Venus South Node, you may have like a falling out with like female relatives, like female siblings. There may also be a sense of you feeling like you need to move away from home because the South Node belongs to your 4th house. So usually the storyline with that is you want to move away from home, mom doesn't want you to leave, grandma doesn't want you to leave, sister doesn't want you to leave, and you're like, I got to get out of here. North Node's in the whole sign 10th house. I got to go and be in another place. And when you do that, it's going to activate because it's going to sextile your Jupiter. So just moving out of your hometown, moving out of your home, going to another place incentivizes you to expand your career. I saw that you were asking about if North Node will start changing your path. Yeah, it will, right? Because the North Node is ruled by Jupiter and you got Jupiter in the 7th. So you literally got to go deeper into your career, deeper into education, deeper into traveling, which is going to then open up and it's going to enhance everything within your 7th house. Jupiter sextiles it. So I'm looking at this going, where do you live? Travel, take classes, try to meet people on the internet, try to meet people in foreign places, and get out of where you've been living. If you can do that, that's what's really going to incentivize this. And just know, even bringing in a partner, with Neptune on the ascendant, you're still going to feel kind of lonely, right? So just having somebody does not mean that you're going to be good. I've got clients that have Neptune on the ascendant and they're like, I'm in a relationship, they're giving me everything, I've never felt so alone. So be careful not to feel like you need to fill in the gap there. But because Mercury is retrograde, it's karmic, and the opposition to Neptune means that you go through periods of being together and separate, or you meet somebody who's far away. And then the opposition to Uranus means it's in another place. So yeah, I mean, get on the internet. I've seen so many Pisces risings. I have a couple of them, my friends, who they have relationships with people in another country. They just go back and forth and they see each other every couple months and it's just easier. And that may be a way to navigate with the Neptune transit, depending on where you live, you know? But when you have a really strong Mercury transit, when you have like Saturn trine Mercury in 2024 and 2025, you're going to see that that's going to open up more in terms of relationships for you. But it'll be Saturn sitting on your ascendant trining. So you're going to go, yeah, but I got to move to you, or you got to move to me. You're like, what are we doing? You know? But Jupiter in Libra in the 7th house at a 7, you will get married. It will happen. I think it's just a matter of really looking at your Mercury, and you may be surprised that it's going to be people who are either karmic from past lives, or there can be people who come around when you have your 7th house lord in the 4th from the past. So it might be once you relocate or they relocate, you guys reconnect, and then there's a sense of coming together. But between your Saturn return and then having Saturn come into conjunction with your ascendant, even in a relationship, you have to give yourself your time. You're going to realize this over these next couple of years. So having it at a distance isn't necessarily a bad thing, you know? And your Saturn is at 29 degrees. So I would really recommend getting a Saturn return reading. Go and talk to somebody about that. Because it's about you mastering this in this lifetime. You're a very reluctant soul. I say that lovingly, but Venus on the South Node, Saturn at 29, Saturn in the 12th house, 7th house lord in opposition to your 12th house lord. It wants you to let go of habits of being afraid of being alone. It wants you to spend time being alone. And when you embrace it and you realize that there's a lot of learning that comes from it, it's like the spell is broken, you know? So you're really reluctant. You really want those relationships. But sometimes you have this many aspects because you're being held back from connecting to that person, because Jupiter and Libra in the 7th, I think, is good. You're being held back from connecting with that person because you have to go through so much karmic clearing and you need to learn a lot before you get to the relationship, if that makes sense, you know? Hopefully that's helpful. Have fun with that Neptune transit. It looks super psychic. I think you might change where you're living personally, but we'll see. Let me know. We've got Serena. And this was 2979 at 12 a.m. I just realized that's 219. It was inevitable. I still feel the Mercury shadow. I'm glad I caught that. 2979. There we go. And that was at 12 a.m. There we go. Okay, now I can plug you in here. Okay, so Aqua Sun, Scorpio rising, Cancer moon. Can you give me a reading on relationships with spouse? Well, I can say it's probably pretty colorful considering the fact that you're about to have a new moon conjunct your IC, square your ascendant and your descendant with Pluto. So the communication with partners needs to be really watched because that new moon is planting a seed in how you communicate with other people. And as it squares your ascendant and your descendant, it's going to come down to the communication style and whether or not it's feeling like icy and kind of stagnant, right? It's also in opposition to your natal Jupiter, which is the ruler of the 5th house, where you may or may not feel like you're getting enough travel, getting enough romance, having enough fun. I gotta be honest with you, Scorpio rising charts are kind of gnarly right now. And I'm looking at your 4th house and I'm like, holy cow. You got a stellium of planets in Aquarius, Mars, Mercury, and the Sun. Saturn has been tearing through there and it's been in a square to your natal Uranus, okay, in the 1st house. So you're dealing with home, family, relationship, karma. Square Uranus, you're learning not to just react. And it's been in a square to Uranus in the 7th house, which means your partner has been the one reacting, okay? I don't make the rules. I just read the astrology. So this many squares is like super holy God. If you've stayed married throughout this last year, give yourself a pat on the back because that's not easy. And if he's an Aquarius, Sun, Taurus rising, and Venus and Moon, part of what's going on is he's having eclipses in his 7th house and it's all squaring stuff in the 10th house, right? So if he's a Taurus rising and you have all that planet in Aquarius, all those planets in Aquarius, you guys get along really well, but like you're the boss because all of your planets are in his 10th house. And what's going on right now with Uranus in your 7th house is you've got a partner going, no, that's not how this is going to work. Right? And Uranus has been squaring your Mars, squaring your Mercury, squaring your Sun. And God bless you, but you rule the roost with a chart like this. Mars, Mercury, Sun is like you say jump and they say how high, right? So what you're realizing is that things can't go down like that anymore. A lot of that's family conditioning with the planets in the 4th house. You come from a family that would fight or party, depending on how you look at it. And it all squares Uranus. So it tells me that you've always kind of been a sense of like kind of having your nerves up a little bit because you never know what's going to happen. And so what's going on is Uranus, you're in your Uranus opposition. You're going to have lots of kind of ups and downs in relationships because they don't want to have that kind of dynamic in the home right now. So there's that. And I think that for Scorpio risings, it's good because it's teaching you that partners are basically going to say, get out of your past habits, Saturn in your 4th house, stop carrying on that tradition. Let's not keep the house like this. If this is what's going to be happening, because they're getting triggered, they're like, I will leave. I will not stay here. And Uranus in the 7th house squaring all your planets is them getting kind of antsy, being like, can we move somewhere else? Can we have space? Like, what are we doing? It doesn't always mean divorce. It just means that you need to literally, with Saturn and Venus right now in the 4th house, that's really significant. Venus rules your partner. So as it's coming into conjunction with all these planets and Saturn, it means that there's family stuff going on. You're clearing out family karma. You're realizing what's important in relationships. It does sometimes feel like it's a little stagnant because it's in an air sign. But things can get better. Knowing that he also is a Taurus rising, he's still going to have eclipses going on in his natal 1st and 7th. And he also is going to get hit with that Venus retrograde. And when I look at your chart, a Venus retrograde in the 10th, depending on how things play out for the next couple of months, like the July, August time period can definitely be heavier. Like it can be much heavier for him because it's in his 4th house of whether or not a woman moves in or moves out. And for you, in regards to your relationship. So if you're asking like, are we going to stay together? Are we going to make it? Saturn's now leaving all of these squares and oppositions. You know, you're going to see Uranus square your Mercury, Mars, and Sun, and it's in a superior position. So that tells me that April, May, June, July, August, your partner and their behavior is going to dictate a lot of where this relationship is going. So I don't like to say this, but if things aren't changing, it's going to be them being like, this changes or I leave type of vibe, or I'm not participating, or I'm not staying, or I'm walking out of the room because they're just not wanting to, they don't want to continue some kind of patterning, basically. The North Node also is moving to your descendant. So you're reaching for more peace and stability and security in relationships. As it moves away from Uranus, I think you can get that. And keep in mind that it's also trining your Venus. So much can be accomplished through diffusing conflict, talking, communicating. If you've got Venus in the 3rd house, you know how to speak sweetly. And you know how to heal things. And I think Venus in Capricorn, trine Chiron, is learning how to acknowledge them, you know, appreciate them. And even though you got all that Aquarius in the 4th house, you have a Cancer moon and you have a very strong 4th house signature, which means you act like a Cancer. And sometimes you have a hard time resisting and letting go of the past. And so there can be a sense of past patterning that's coming up that you may not be aware of that is coming out through the relationship, if that makes sense, you know? This is a hard one. This is really challenging. And I think Saturn now coming into conjunct your series, it can be combating heavy emotions and depression, coming into conjunction with Vesta, learning how to nurture and take better care of yourself, working through parent issues. And then over this next year, going into 2024, Saturn is going to come into conjunction with Juno, and then it's going to sit on the South Node. So the truth is do you still love that partner over the next 2 years? Are you making time for date night? Are you making time for romance? If you guys have children, is there difficulties with children? If you don't have children, do you reflect on why you didn't have children and what you can do to feel like you have a family dynamic? And divorce is more so connected personally to the 6th house Lord, or the 6th house. So Saturn already hit your Mars, which rules that, and you're going to have Jupiter go through there. So I don't necessarily think that that's saying that there's divorce, but just know the next 2 years, Uranus is going to square your Mercury and your Sun at 19. So it tells me that you can't continue family dynamics with your partner. Maybe it's a matter of explaining to your partner that you have reactions the way that you have because of the dynamic that you grew up in and that you get triggered. And, you know, oh, you've been trying to conceive. Okay. So, you know, Jupiter going into Aries, not as ideal. Jupiter in Taurus, I think you're going to see more once Jupiter goes into Taurus because you've got your 5th house Lord in the 7th. So that will enhance it. And it can be enhancing anything in regards to fertility through means of changing the diet and integrating different foods or supplements like herbs, personally. You'd want to look at his transits too, but you do have the South Node and Juno in the 5th, so that can say through the acts of not being able to feel like you can conceive puts pressure on the relationship, right? And Neptune square the nodes, so there's a need to really focus on like what you guys value and talking about what you value, so maybe you're creating the space where energetically that can kind of flow a little bit better. And you'll come into Saturn opposed Saturn pretty soon. But children in general, that's more your Neptune, because you have Neptune square Saturn and Neptune square the nodes. Just pay attention to what you're eating, consuming, drinking, because that can have an effect on fertility stuff in general. And because your 5th house cusp is at a 9, which is connected to Jupiter, you guys may go back and forth with whether or not you're going to have some kind of like assistance through other people who can kind of guide you through that process. I would also say like relationship counseling can be really helpful and like open the door to like creating more time for romance, so there isn't that stress revolving around like trying to conceive and then there being conflict and tension, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Sending you lots of good vibes, and watch for that eclipse. You're going to have some eclipses in the spring that are going to be in Scorpio, and then a full moon that's going to be in Taurus, and it's going to reactivate a lot of this stuff. But you're already kind of through the thick of it. You already weathered the storm. We got Bowen. Last but definitely not least, you are the real MVP this evening for waiting. Let me pull your info up here. Let's see. are you? I just saw it. Maybe not. Okay, let me throw this in here. November 3rd, 82. (1:42 a.m. Winchester). There we go. All right, so I've got you here, Bowen, Lammy girl. You're so welcome, Serena. I saw your question here a bit ago, but I'm gonna have to scroll through and see if I can find it. So if you can send it again. I know I saw you here somewhere, Lammy girl. Here we go. My astrology is brutal right now. I'm likely to fall asleep before my reading. Okay, here we go. Set money. Okay, got you here. So, wondering if I will win my legal fight in the next few months for the schedule for my kids that I want. And should I throw in the towel on being a realtor? Okay, there we go. Okay, so Virgo rising, you've had a Mercury retrograde. Mercury is your time lord or your chart lord. It's been retrograde in your 5th house. And you've had Saturn in your 6th house, which also kind of deals with lawsuits. And it's been in a square to Uranus. So it looks like it's just been delays and challenging issues with timing. In terms of like winning lawsuits or seeing positive things come from lawsuits, you would need to see a positive transit involving like maybe Jupiter and Uranus. And you are going to see that Jupiter is going to go through the 8th house, which makes me feel like you're going to have to spend more time and maybe even expenses. But I wonder as Jupiter comes into your 9th house in April, May, if after a delay, you're getting more of what you want, especially because it's going to be making trines to your ascendant. So April, May, it's looking better. Saturn rules children for you, and you've had Pluto in a square with your natal Saturn, which is why there's been like a conflict over children. Down the road, in the summertime, the North and the South Node are going to move into Aries and Libra, and it's going to square. So it makes me feel like even if there is some back and forth, possibly this is still going into the summer. Like, I don't like saying that, but when I see the North and the South Node square, make sure whatever you agree on, it's in writing. Because if somebody's not happy with the fact that you have gotten, what it is that you're looking for, you may still be in court, but it might take till spring of next year to have this totally ironed out. By then, Jupiter and Uranus coming together makes me feel like there can be like an agreement that's solid and that you have the support, or maybe you've changed attorneys or somebody who's just representing you. But it looks like you're getting something that's more solid and more consistent that you can kind of rely on with the sextiles to your 7th house and also the trines to your ascendant. So that'll be the spring of next year. I also feel like in regards to your kid stuff in general, just with Mercury retrograde, there's been a lot of fear coming up about, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Are we going to get what we want? Am I going to be, pleased? Am I going to have to go back to court? When Mercury comes into conjunction with Pluto here, I would watch, because that is going to tell us potentially whether or not there is some, not definitive, but like there's like a harsh conversation with somebody, or there's some like intense exchange that you might have with somebody around the 8th of February through mid-February when Mercury and Pluto align. signing documents and paperwork. I also wonder if this is about talking to a therapist about your children and what your kids want, and whether or not there's some interview or something that you do with them, or they do like a court assessment and then they take that into consideration before they make a decision about where the kids are going to go. That could happen as well. In regards to like real estate, you've had a Mars retrograde in your 10th house. So there's been a back and forth that's been going on in your 10th house where you're like, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? What do I want to do? Moon is in Gemini, which belongs to your 10th house of work. So moon can be property. But you've got the moon that is in opposition to Uranus. So it's like you change your mind a lot in terms of what you want to do work-wise. There can be a sense of like wanting to do it, but not wanting to take the time, or going through the training, or kind of feeling like that's a little like frazzling. And it looks like you're ready to make a job change. You know, you've got the South Node coming for your Mercury, which is like, I want to make money in a different way. And you've got Jupiter that's getting ready to make an opposition to your Mercury. So I feel like it's not a good time to make a decision right now. I feel like you're going to make a decision closer to May, when Jupiter opposes your Mercury. So you have found a teacher, a training, a program, something that you want to commit to. Jupiter can also be a partnership. So somebody who incentivizes you to like work with you. And also when you see that you're getting ready to start having, what was the other thing I was looking at? Mercury. So Jupiter opposed Mercury. There was something else that I was just looking at that I was like, oh, it would be this. Oh, when you have Saturn in your 6th house, trine Venus. So it looks like you need to do some like training, certification. So like you can go back and forth and make your mind up a lot, but it might change a lot between now and March. And I feel like April, May is better time for like training, certification. Sun and Venus in Scorpio, so you're really great with communicating and talking to people, kind of moving around. Jupiter is there as well, so you'd be really great talking to people and having like sales and all of that stuff, yeah. Just the problem is that your moon in conjuncts your sun and your Mercury, so there's like a little bit of you wanting to learn a little bit about everything, and I think that you can get really deep with something, and then you're like, okay, on to the next thing. So you kind of just like hop around a little bit, you know? North Node in the 10th, focusing on career. North Node connected to Cancer, motherhood, but it can also be about working in the industry of, you know, working with homes and property, ruled by the moon, and the moon's in the 9th, right? So you got the moon that is in opposition to Uranus. So there is a need for you to make the time consistently to focus on doing the training, so that way you can consistently move through that, make time for studying, you know, learn, take your time, and go through the process, I think, in this next year of being able to kind of maybe get some kind of certification. Pluto trine your moon is really great. It makes me feel like you can definitely start focusing on working for yourself. And I also really like the fact that it's coming into a trine with, technically, with a planet that's in your whole sign 5th. You just got to be willing to kind of make a shift and make a change. Maybe doing like distance learning, like learning online, going through a course and doing something digitally with Pluto entering into Aquarius. And I also feel like watch for that Jupiter opposition, because as soon as Jupiter goes into Taurus in May, it's going to oppose Mercury, and you're going to be like, I found the teacher, I found the program, I know how to get certified. And you're going to have something that's going to really pique your interest, and you're going to want to get started. And when you have a strong transit to Mercury, which I think will be Saturn retrograde, in a trine to Mercury, I think you're working a different job in the fall of this year. That's what I think is going to happen. And right when right when Saturn stations trine your Mercury, it looks like from, I would say the second half of September on, that's when you're working something completely different. Which I think is great with Jupiter and Uranus in opposition to your sun sign. I think it can be bringing in clients and focusing on being able to kind of teach and expand with other people, which can be really good for you. And also I think you'll be looking at maybe doing work in other places. You might be considering like trying to sell or get into property or real estate that might be in other areas, which would be really great also for relationships. You didn't ask about that, but the sextile to your Neptune would definitely open that up. Okay. So you're probably sleeping, but that's okay. And to those of you guys who stayed all the way through, you guys are awesome. Thanks for spending your Friday night with me. And those of you guys who got readings and you donated and stuff, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, once again, tomorrow is the last day to sign up for my Astrology 201. So if you want to learn about transits, you want to learn how to do some of the stuff I'm doing, you can sign up. That's on my website. The links are below. I'll be back next week. I'm not sure which day I'll post it. I try to post it early, but we'll do tarot. And Sunday will be an astro weather. So I hope you guys have a happy new moon. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's a really important time for just clearing the decks today and tomorrow, getting ready for a fresh new start. This new moon is super powerful. So hope it's a good one for you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you guys for staying with me, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.